Good morning. My name is Barbara Fuller. As chair of the board, I welcome you to this August 16th, 2022 working session of the Washtenaw County Board of Road Commissioners. Our communications manager, Emily Kaiser, will describe how our meetings operate, how to access the agenda packet, and how people may participate remotely. Emily.
Thanks, Commissioner. There are multiple ways to make public comment during today's meeting, whether you're joining us in person or virtually. If you're here in person and would like to make public comment, please fill out the sign-in sheet now. If you're joining us virtually, we'll ask that you virtually raise your hand at the appropriate time in the agenda. If you are joining us virtually, the chat feature on this Zoom meeting is available only as technical support for users on their smartphone or computer. If you are experiencing technical issues with audio or video during the meeting, please submit a comment in the chat feature and I will help you troubleshoot. If you are a staff member experiencing issues, please contact the IT help desk for assistance. The audio and video of this meeting is being recorded. A link to the video recording will be posted to wcroads.org in the coming days. There are also printed copies of today's working session agenda and presentation on the table here, and it's posted to wcroads.org. There's a link available in the chat if you're joining us from your computer or smartphone. Thanks, Commissioner.
Thank you, Emily. And now I will call this working session to order. If Emily would please call the roll.
Chair Barb Fuller.
Present.
Vice Chair Rod Green.
Here.
Commissioner Douglas Fuller.
Present.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas.
Present.
And Commissioner Joanne McCollum.
Present.
The following directors are also in attendance. Managing Director Cheryl Siddle, Director of Engineering County Highway Engineer Matt Mcdonald, Director of Operations Adam Lape, and Director of Finance and IT Dan Ackerman.
Thank you, Emily. At this time, our agenda item is public participation. This is the time set aside on the agenda to receive comments from the public. This is not intended to be a period for dialogue. Each person will be allotted 3 minutes to address the board. Emily will explain how people may be recognized to offer comments to the board. Emily?
Thanks, Commissioner. So since this is a hybrid meeting with both in-person and virtual attendees, we'll take turns between those attending in person and virtually. For virtual attendees, we ask that you virtually raise your hand now. If you're viewing the meeting on your computer, first make sure to click Join Audio. You can then raise your hand by clicking the Participants or Reactions button at the bottom of your screen and then the Raise Hand button. If you dialed into the meeting from your touchtone phone, raise your hand by dialing *9. I will unmute virtual participants with raised hands one at a time. I'll announce your username or the last 4 digits of your phone number when it is your turn to speak. Please share your name and address before beginning your comments. For in-person attendees, I'll start with those of you who've signed up on the sign-in sheet as you walked in. If you didn't sign in, you're still welcome to make comment. I'll notify you when it's your turn. At this time, Commissioner, we do not have anyone on the sign-in sheet or any raised hands.
Thank you, Emily. We will move on then with the rest of the working session, and I turn it over to our Managing Director, Cheryl Siddle.
Well, good morning, everyone. I very quickly am going to turn it over to Adam Lape, our Director of Operations. He's going to provide us an update on both the status of our equipment fleet as well as our facilities.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Adam Lape, Director of Operations. As you see in front of us, we have the equipment facilities update for 2022 and the look ahead for 2023. We'll cover a little bit of the agenda here very quickly. For equipment and facilities, we're going to meet both teams, the state of the fleet, the state of the grounds, and then our wish list for 2023. And then answer any questions that we may have. Okay, so we're going to start meeting the team in the shop. So we have Mike Livesey, our equipment maintenance supervisor. Andy Coppernow is our group leader in the shop. And we have Jet Mann, which is the stockroom supervisor. And our stock clerk is Warren Koppel. We have Rob Eklund, Wyatt Ford, recently joined the team. We have Justin Hanwald, Justin Hubert, and Bob Yakoviski.
Lovingly known as Bob J.
Bob J is how we refer to that. Bob enjoys that, teasing everybody. All right, so we'll look at some of our responsibilities now. Obviously, our shop maintains the fleet year round. Routine maintenance, roadside repairs, engine overhauls, hydraulic and electrical systems and brine systems. This group also responds to emergencies. So they're called in when our heavy truck drivers are called in as well. Obviously, they have to keep us moving when the snow's flying. So they get to come in for all those emergency services as well for us. We upfit some of our specialty vehicles. So example would be upfitting a boom mower for our specific needs. Do we carry signs, fire extinguishers, things like that? And then we maintain supplies for the organization, the parts, any safety equipment, our daily tools. Jeff Mann keeps that moving, and Warren makes sure those gets handed out and charged out to the group. And then we obviously maintain and manage our contracts with vendors for upfitting the heavy trucks, suppliers for any of the parts that we need. And then our overview of the fleet in general. On the left side of the screen, we have our heavy trucks, graders, the aerial lift trucks, our grade alls, and then our tractor mowers. Those are your typical what you see day to day out moving on the road doing work for us. And then obviously the loaders, the pickup trucks, loaders a little more specialized, but the pickup trucks, light, medium duty, those move us around, move the whole group. So we'll touch on those here in a little bit. I'm going to get into a few real specialized pieces of equipment, our backhoes, and then our seal coat equipment. So the chip spreader, the pneumatic tire rollers, the rubber rollers that bed that stone in. And then we have a few distributors that sprayed out the liquid material. And then a recently purchased a few years ago vacuum truck, which is sometimes known as a Vector truck, cleaning out structures, culverts, sometimes used for pushing ice out of the way in the winter when we start getting the quick thaws. So only one piece of equipment, but we keep it very busy.
Commissioner Yamas, do you have a question?
Yeah, you called, what was that truck you called it? A backer truck?
Vacuum truck.
Oh, a vacuum truck.
Vacuum
Okay,
truck. Yeah, otherwise you might hear people say the Vector truck,
okay,
just different brand specific titles.
okay.
What do you do with, I'm sorry,
I'm sorry.
Commissioner Green?
Yes. What does a vacuum truck do?
That's what we use to clean out the structures, the drainage structures, or clean out a culvert. It actually can flush and vacuum out whatever sediments in the
Debris.
debris. Yeah, any debris. Yep.
Where does that material end up once you've,
We have a decanting station at our Northeast Service Center. So newly built Northeast Service Center has an oil water separator. So the material can decant, so the water basically can run out, and then it's oil water separated, so it's safe to go back into the sewer system. And then the solids are eventually taken to a landfill once they're dried up, essentially. And then are loaded out similar to dirt. Yeah.
okay. Other questions?
So we have one of those.
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
That's-
Is that enough?
Is it enough? We'd love to have more, but at this point it's working for us properly. So, yes, we'd like to have more, but right now it works for the bodies that we have. So.
Okay.
Next slide, Emily. Thank you. And so some expenditure trends. As you can see, Dan and I were just talking, 2008 was a little meager compared to where we are now in 2022 and will be in 2023. A little bit of fluctuation because we have some carryover for the 11 heavy trucks that we purchased previously. Still waiting on getting to see those nice things. So the expenditure is going to fluctuate a little bit between 22 and 23. But the trend is great. Our fleet is great because of the expenditures the board's approved. So we appreciate that.
Commissioner Green?
Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yes, the expenditures for 2023. Does that represent some type of carryover?
That is correct.
Okay.
So that's why it climbed the line a little bit there as compared to usual. Because of that, we have $3 million extended for carryover. Okay, we'll get in the next slide here. The actual heavy trucks, so that we all know and love, plow the snow, apply the salt, the liquid brine. And in the summertime, we haul the material for our seal coat project. So our chip seal stone, same trucks are re-outfitted a little bit and a few things taken off of them and prep us for the summertime. And we haul that material throughout the county, and that's how we spread our chip seal stone. And then we also haul stones just to our unpaved roads. And we use those trucks for maintenance on that as well. A lot of times in the spring is when you see that, when the roads are breaking up from the ice. Go to the next slide. We currently have 54 trucks. Our average age is about 8.5 years, and the odometer is 79,000 miles. We're doing pretty good on that trend. We'll go to the next few slides here and we'll be able to highlight that for everyone. Our goal for replacement, that schedules 10 years or 100,000 miles. We currently have 19 trucks overdue for replacement. Obviously, the note we have at the bottom there, 11 of the new trucks are part of that 19 as well. So we're doing pretty good in that aspect. So less than 10.
Commissioner Yamas and then Commissioner Green.
So the goal is every 10 years, 100,000 miles. So, but we've been replacing them every 8 years, right? At 80 is the previous slide. I'm confused about the previous slide.
Oh, okay, we can go back there.
So the average age is 8.5 years with an odometer reading of 79,000.
That's current status. So we're just currently averaging 8.5.
Oh,
years.
I see.
Yeah, the goal is to remain at 10 years or less than 100,000 miles. That's our kind of our starting goal.
Okay. All righty. Thank you.
Yes, so like the note we just made recently, that we are in a very good status.
We are.
Yeah, it's taken us a while to get there. If
Yeah.
you- And I won't ask to go back to the previous slide, but if you look at where our investment
Yeah.
was even, 7, 8 years ago, we were in a really big hole, just like with the
That's right.
roads where we were falling apart all over the place. That included our vehicles as well.
Yep.
And so this board has been very supportive as our revenue has increased of increasing the amount we spend on equipment so that we're digging ourselves out of that equipment hole, because we need to have reliable equipment in order to be able to do the job that we need to do. As Adam said, every single day we're using these trucks. So we've slowly been digging our way out so that our average now is 8.5 years. We have some that are older than that. We're trying to push those out. And then certainly we have the newer ones, and then we want to get ourselves on that replacement schedule so that we're averaging 10 years every 100,000 miles, that we're pushing out that old equipment and staying relevant.
Okay. So I'm sorry. Do you want to ask?
So just also beyond the 80,000 miles, do the vehicles become dysfunctional or unsafe? or
Not dysfunctional, but you start, and I have a few notes in here we'll touch on as well with some other equipment. As you start to reach miles or hours of service, you start to get to the high level that you start having failures that are critical and very expensive.
Okay.
So over that 80,000 limit that we'll talk about here in a moment, you start running into very expensive repairs.
I see.
No, they don't just stop working, but they become expensive to maintain.
Commissioner Yamas, more?
So I guess my question was a follow-up question to what you said, Cheryl. So we were able to do that because revenues increased and you've gotten support to purchase. So we know our revenues are based on taxes, right?
Right.
And what has been given.
Right,
Okay.
that was the gas tax that increase that was approved back in 2015, and we started receiving that revenue in 2017. So that's pretty recent. I mean, all
Yeah.
things considered, that's still only the last 5 years where we have seen that increase in revenue.
Correct.
Right. So that's what I was trying to put it along this chart, the very capital expenditure chart. Oh, I need my glasses for this.
Sorry.
Anything
Run out
else?
of lines.
No, thank you.
Commissioner Doug Fuller.
It's worth pointing out at this point, I think, that part of our ability to shift the focus to acquiring new vehicles as opposed to spending overtime money to repair old ones is largely a function. Oh, help me out here, Cheryl. How many years ago was it when this MDOT started allowing us to depreciate this
Oh.
state equipment? Been 6 years?
7 years.
And
I think at least, yeah.
I mean, that's that ongoing, but,
well, it wasn't true 15 years ago. Or at least,
well,
what-
I think we just didn't have the newer fleets to get all that depreciation participation.
okay.
If they're fully depreciated, then MDOT wasn't.
That's a good point.
It's worth pointing out that
Right.
when we buy a new truck and it's used in state work,
Right.
which means the stateside crew,
That is correct.
we can depreciate and receive cash payments for that depreciation from MDOT.
Okay.
Due to the skill of the operations department and the finance department, we have been able to apply that money wisely in acquiring new equipment. That was probably the single most important part that allowed us to start buying new equipment. It means that the new equipment goes to the stateside crew, which isn't necessarily fair to the people working out of Pittsfield Township or Manchester or Chelsea. Okay, but it allowed us then to bring new equipment into stateside and let the trucks that were already in stateside and were depreciated allow that equipment to be reassigned to replace much older equipment in some of the satellite yards. So that single thing was hugely instrumental in allowing us to start upgrading the equipment. Doug Fuller personally has a real aversion to spending overtime dollars to fix trucks that are 15 years old and should have long gone away, but that's the truck that we have today. So when it breaks down under the use, it's now on its third day of essentially 24-hour-a-day operation. You're going to fix that truck because that's the truck you have.
Yeah.
So we have managed to work ourselves largely out of that particular scenario. But I want to emphasize the ability of operations and finance to make sure that that happened.
And if I may,
Please.
besides the state trunk line participation in the depreciation, and Commissioner Fuller is correct, every year when we have an audit with the state, then that participation is part of the audit adjustments. And eventually will mean some cash back to the road commission. But we started financing 4 trucks a year.
Yep.
Using installment purchases and getting low interest rates, but that allowed us to at least get 4 heavy trucks, sometimes more, and not have to use, cash for everything. So that's
And we-
another reason we were able to.
We have used that savings, that depreciation that we receive back. We've set up sort of a revolving fund so that we're using that to reinvest in equipment as well.
And I believe that was in 2021 that we had enough in that balance to use to pay cash for the 4 heavy trucks, not having to finance. That's something that we build those reserves up, and then when we have enough, we say, okay, we don't need to finance any of the trucks. We can just pay outright cash for it, which is great.
But I'll point out that it was the adroitness of, to some degree, the board, but certainly our finance director and managing director to recognize, we can get money to borrow to buy these trucks at extremely low rates. When a couple of years ago, rates were in the realm of 2%. Well, at that point, it makes a lot of sense to go ahead and borrow the money. Dan,
right.
in particular, I personally rely on as a commissioner to say, Dan, does this make sense?
Right.
And Dan has so far always been absolutely straightforward. Yes, that makes sense. That, on the other hand, is a little bit dicey. Okay, well, let's stay away from the dicey thing and
We
go
stick with
with
safe.
what is reasonable. But I want to emphasize the state contracts are extremely valuable to us at a number of levels. And certainly financing of equipment is part of that because of the depreciation.
Correct.
Absolutely.
Because there are certainly days when I, like our cousins to the south of Lenawee County, have never done state contract work, and barring a huge earthquake that kills everybody in Lenawee County, I don't see Lenawee County ever doing state work. They really believe in their heart of hearts that if it's a state road, that's fine. Let the state deal with it. We are not going to use our precious resources to do state work, but the state use their precious resources. We jointly have found other things that make it attractive. So it's really pertinent to the way we do business. Anyway, I'll shut up. Thank you.
Commissioner
Thank you, Dan.
Yamas. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have more questions?
I do have one more question, Dan, before you go away.
Oh, sorry.
So how do we see, as I'm becoming more and more aware of our finances and the reports that you give and the yearly thing. I keep on trying to pick out. So how can we see that in your reports? Do you say, so in my mind, I always kind of equate things to my personal finances,
Okay,
right?
sure.
So I
Yeah.
have a charge card that gets points that I turn
Yes.
around and use
Yeah,
those
right.
points to
Understood.
either pay down that card, I pay it off, or I save those points to do something else. So in my budget,
Yeah.
I see that.
Right.
So can we see that in our budget somehow?
Yeah.
Do you
it's-
report that?
It's a part of the fund balance that is in Plant Moran's audit report.
Oh,
And I'd
okay.
be happy to, sometimes they combine some of the reserves or designations of our fund balance. But I can give you a more detailed breakdown of that, and you can see the exact amount that we're holding for the state trunk line adjustments.
Okay, that would be great.
Yeah, but it should be a part of it's a part of our fund balance, and it's at a minimum in our annual audit reports.
Okay, that's a good thing to know and take out. Because I think the
Yes.
public sometimes is confused by why you have so much money,
Right.
not knowing that things are earmarked.
Yeah.
And if I
Yeah,
could
is it
tell what's
reserved? Is it
earmarked,
Designated, there's all these
Right.
distinctions you have. You know, for instance, we have money tied up with salt, right?
yes,
And so that's not spendable, if you will, because we can't pay our employees in salt. So we have to acknowledge that as a part of our fund balance. So,
Right.
so things like that.
okay,
Commissioner Green?
thank you.
Just kind of curious, the time period between point of purchase and point of delivery is what, about a year? Or longer?
And
It keeps
growing.
changing.
It's been-
Yeah,
yeah.
it's growing.
It's quickly adjusting by the minute.
Yeah.
Really?
We
It used to
ordered-
be, yes, a year, and now you see with the carryover from vehicles we ordered in the end of 2021, anticipating 2022 receipt of vehicle and outfitted and prepared, we've carried over again to 2023. So a little bit of supply chain and just demand in general has lengthened that purchased on the road time.
So it's closer to 16 to 18 months, Adam, is that
Right
fair?
now, yes.
Oh, wow.
I
Okay.
think right now is probably the safest way to describe that. It unfortunately extends. It hasn't gotten any shorter. this
So when
year.
we make budget decisions to purchase something,
Right.
we're looking at order
We'll be
today.
highlight-
and
we're
Right.
highlighting one of
Yes.
those for you here shortly.
Okay.
Yeah,
Alright.
we're learning
Okay.
quickly as we go at that. Supply chain has been problematic this year, so.
That's why you see that huge carryover in expenditures from 22 to 23.
Yeah.
We were hoping to get them in 22, but
Yeah,
it's not possible, I guess.
made its way into the next year.
But that money is committed, so
Right,
it's
yes.
protected,
Yeah, very similar to the salt comparison.
right?
Yeah.
So while that fund balance looks inflated, it's really not.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
It's-
spent in future.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
matching and trending the way we've been going.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thanks, Dan.
Think
And
that's
also
it.
a real quick note, which is good, since we're here on the fleet discussion for the heavy trucks portion. Maintaining that 10 years, 100,000 miles also keeps us in good standing for the vehicles that are depreciated and do get handed off to other crews to work throughout the county. They're newer, less miles, much more reliable. So that's something that over the 8 or 9 years even that I've seen, we've improved every year. Having newer trucks for the second portion of its life, which is very, very beneficial to us because we have other roads to maintain as well that are responsibility as opposed to just Mdot roads. So
So that was my question. So then they're moved to the Pittsfield yard or the other yards?
that is
So-
correct.
Okay,
Yep.
And staff doesn't always like that, but they understand why we're doing what we're doing.
And we're doing so good now that employees are getting trucks that are essentially still new and have just got the bugs worked out of them. So the hand down employees are actually benefiting a little more than the people getting the new ones at times. So it's been a good improvement.
And that's been a change just since I've been on the board. I think when Bill McFarlane was on the board, we had this
Mhm.
initial discussion. How do we plan ahead? A little more long-range planning than, oh my word, we've got a truck that the wheels just fell off of it. What happened?
We still had trucks
Yes.
from the 1990s at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's been a long
It's been a long
slog,
journey.
but
It'll-
it's starting to pay off.
Yeah, and if we keep maintaining, we're in good standing. We keep going.
Yeah.
But it's an everyday challenge.
Anything else?
thank you. No,
Okay, we'll go to the next slide and talk a little bit about some of the targets that we were just talking about, we would love to stay at 80,000 miles or below. Assist with auction proceeds as well. Knowing that that's hard to sometimes maintain, but as you can see by the line on the screen, we're doing good. We're doing better than we have before, and we'll keep there. So there's much benefit in that, both internally and for auction.
Commissioner Doug Fuller.
Would it be useful from your perspective for this board to be able to see the auction results when we go to sell trucks?
Yeah.
Because selling a truck that's 10 years old and has 80,000 miles on it is a much different thing than selling a 15-year-old truck that has 125,000.
Very much so. You go from,
And there's, at those auction results come in under basically miscellaneous income, they not, and are useful sources of income for the board.
very much so.
So just kind of curious. If a new truck costs about $310,000
Mhm.
and we auction at 80,000 miles, how much do we expect to get at auction for that $80,000 vehicle?
Or 80,000 miles.
80,000 mile vehicle.
Honestly, it
Just
changes
guessing.
every year. We would hope to be over $50,000-$60,000. Sometimes that's a dream. And that's where we've kind of set these balance points, because you get well over 100,000 miles in over 10 years in age. You sometimes find yourself from going from an agency that may buy our used vehicle or a company may buy it to a personal individual. And the price is much different. I mean, then we're getting $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 for something that's very old with likely a lot of problems at that point in its life.
And it's worth noting that Mr. Livesey,
Mhm.
who is in charge of the disposition of vehicles and equipment that leave the commission, has been adroit in finding new ways to dispose of the equipment to maximize our income.
Yes,
The equipment presently is going out, the trucks largely are going out on online auctions, which is a big improvement over what we were doing, say, 10 years ago, when everything went down to the Saline Fairgrounds
correct.
to the local auction. And you got what you got that day, and that was fine. Everybody did that. So everybody that wanted to buy ex-municipal vehicles, because the city of Ann Arbor disposes of their equipment, or used to, at the same place. So there'd be used equipment from everybody in Washtenaw County down there at Saline County Fairgrounds. So credit to Mr. Livesey for maximizing our income, I believe. So,
Yeah, it expands the market greatly.
yeah,
I mean, people
exactly.
from
Because now-
states
now
coming
people in
together.
Ohio can buy our
Yeah.
trucks or wherever.
Yeah, and that's pretty
Thank you.
profitable.
Commissioner Yamas, and then,
No, I was just.
oh,
making sure.
okay.
Okay, so the other question I have, I'm a little confused. So when we move them to other yards, they have less than the 80,000 then, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Yep.
so I'm like, okay, how's that happening? So we just continue to get the newer trucks, they go to the state trunk line,
Yeah,
then we move them over and we try to sell them before they hit the 100,000 mark.
correct. Yeah, we're typically well under that with the pattern that we've been on our replacement schedule. So they have plenty of life left in them to go work in other areas.
Is it accurate to say that essentially we're letting Mdot buy our new trucks?
They're definitely helping.
Yeah, we're letting them
Yeah, they are very much helping us.
Yeah,
Okay.
over time, that's
keep their.
how they
owners in
get
the
paid
water.
for.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes a hard winter is a good thing, getting depreciation. So it's beneficial in multiple ways.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll go to the next slide here. Start talking about our graders, which actually, as you see in the next few slides, we'll talk about, are probably used more even than the heavy trucks. Not mileage, but hours now we're talking about. So hours of use. The employees are in those, and we'll show a chart here. The employees are in those half of the time at least.
Wow.
Just even on the average. So that means some are even used even further than that, or more than that, I should say. So a grader's primary use, scraping unpaved roads. So that's what grades, whether it be springtime breakup or dust suppression, so dust control, grading the roads, spreading the new limestone or gravel when we're partnering with the townships, maintaining those roads in the summertime. And then love the snow, so we're plowing snow with them in the winter any chance we get. They're obviously very big units that are really good and agile on the unpaved roads, so sometimes they're a little easier to maneuver in the wintertime.
Think wind plows.
Yes, that is correct. So our fleet, we have 11 graders, and as you see, we're doing pretty good. 5-year average age, and then the chronometer. So these are pieces of equipment, so their hours of use are monitored as opposed to miles of use. And you see our average hours are 5,000. So that's essentially half the year. And that's just on average. So there are some district crews that use the graders even more than that. And then we'll go to the next slide and talk about the replacement schedule, which we have some good buybacks that actually help us purchase these and keep ourselves on a cycle. So the goal is as similar to a heavy truck, 10 years, 10,000 hours though, as opposed to the 1,000 or 100,000 miles. We currently have one grader that's overdue for replacement. And then we have 2 graders that their buyback contract is expiring in 2023. So we're going to recommend purchasing, replacing those as well. And then average cost to replace a grader is $300,000 at this point.
Commissioner Green.
Can you explain what a buyback contract is?
Yep. So Michigan Caterpillar enters into a buyback agreement with us. So it's usually set on years of service or hours of service. So essentially we buy a piece of equipment and there are basically tiers within that contract of so many hours or so many years of service. And then once you exhaust that, you would basically be out of your buyback contract. So you would not reap any benefit to that. So there's potential for money to, we get a set price back. So
You know what
depending
that
on
amount
tier-
is when we. enter
Yeah,
into
so
that
once we enter the agreement, we know the amount per the tiers. So we try to stay in those tiers of service hours and keep them below 10,000. That's where we're at right now. We haven't been able to buy any ahead of time. So they've always been at the 10,000 hour limit where we have to essentially use that buyback or we sacrifice a guaranteed. money
And that's
that-
buying it back. Who's buying it back?
The manufacturer or the, or who, the vendor,
Yeah.
whoever we're buying the piece of
Which,
equipment.
which is usually Michigan Caterpillar. And the reason for that, they're able to refurbish these and sell them on their own. So it's
Oh, I see.
beneficial to them and to us.
Win-win.
Yeah, it very much is. And the biggest thing for us that we went on is a guaranteed schedule. We enter into purchase agreement and then we also know when that unit will have to be replaced. Kind of eliminates some of the guessing.
Thank you.
Yep. We'll go to the next slide and talk a little bit about the average hours and our target, which, as you can see, we're staying very close at our target hours of 5,000. So we maintain the course and our fleet will be in good working order for graders.
Commissioner Yamas.
Yep.
So how are the hours based? Is it on a vehicle idling or the hours are based on it scraping? How are
It's
they
it's engine
measured?
hours. So when the engine's actually spinning and running, so whether it be idling, working, it's engine hours in general. Because
So-
they don't have a odometer for mileage. So as
Okay.
long as it's running, it's counting.
So people know not to leave their vehicle idling when they're break,
Yeah, very much
lunch,
so, yes.
right?
Mhm.
You know, that's a huge thing at the other industry I was in
Mhm.
to not. So it seems like that would be really important.
And we actually have, just for your own understanding of some of our fleet, we actually have our heavy trucks will time out and they will actually shut themselves down. An example would be if we were working and ended up, the employee had to walk down further and do something and it took longer than expected, the vehicle would just essentially shut itself down.
Okay.
So that's helpful on some of that, minimizing some of that. We can't quite do it with our heavy equipment yet because there's some of the regeneration systems that needed to be idling for.
So one more question. Are they diesel or gasoline?
They are diesel.
So that presents a problem, right, from turning it off and turning it on all the
Correct.
time?
Yeah, so it kind of maintains itself, but they're very efficient now, so that's helpful. Keeping the engine hours, safe engine hours, they're not as rough on themselves idling as they used to be.
Okay,
So
thank you.
you're welcome.
Commissioner Green.
Also, our graders typically seasonal use.
No, honestly, we can use them all year. We use them for different different activities, I should say. So in the summertime is more of a maintenance use. And then in the wintertime is a winter maintenance use. So a little bit different. We're not scraping the roads in the winter. We're just cutting the ice and pushing the snow with them.
Do you want to go back to that previous picture?
Yeah, I can go back there. There you go. So that's actually pretty good here. And I'll follow along in my own notes here. So you can see on the right there, that's in the summertime. So that's leveling out limestone that's just been hauled out and spread. So that would be a township project that you would see that happening. And then I believe the next slide has a grader pushing a wind plow, and I believe that was in District 4. And those plows are about 8 foot tall, so that's a lot of snow in front of that grader there. And so I think Emily can attest to it being a little bit of an entertainment session when we were trying to get that picture. But yeah, so that's your two different types of work that they use. So we can use them most of the year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And there's nothing more rewarding on a winter morning than hearing that
Yes.
truck coming up the
Yes.
road at my
Some of,
house.
yes, some of us that live on hills and there's a corner at the bottom in water that you don't want to end up in. Yeah, the chair may like to get up the hill instead of go down really fast. So
Yeah.
very much an agile piece of equipment that's very stable in the ice or on the ice, which our big trucks aren't as stable as you think. Just because they're heavy, they're not as easy to manipulate on ice. So the graders do great for us in that aspect. Okay, so I believe we can go to.
I'm sorry, Commissioner McCollum.
Go ahead.
I was wondering, I know that they have the other plows that they have the paint plow.
Mhm.
Would that be feasible for this type too?
Yeah, we've actually painted, I think, 2 for sure, grader plows already.
Okay.
Yeah, so we paint anything we've taken, and I forget, yeah, we're not afraid. It's, it helps us.
So when you go to the parking lot
yeah.
today for your
Yeah, we'll
vehicle.
paint whatever is not running away from us. So we can do that. And it's great also for some of the more rural areas. We've painted the grader plows because we can take them in the parade. It's a little, it's
Yeah.
more.
Let the
exciting.
record show that we might consider dropping the grader plow, one of the grader plows from Manchester off at the chairman's home and
Yes.
let her paint the plow.
Great. See?
Put a barn quilt on the plow.
Fair
There we
enough.
go. There we
Hey,
go.
once
Just,
again, we'll.
just
take
for the
that.
record, paint a plow applications are due by the 25th. So
Yeah, a little
Yeah, there you
shameless
go.
plug there. Yeah, so.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's a good question though, but yeah, so we can paint any plow we have, so. And we take some pride in that. It's a lot of fun.
And it's kind of catching on, right? In
Very
terms
much
of
so.
people who
Yeah,
want.
and throughout the
paint
state even.
plow.
And so it just keeps gaining ground, so.
Yep.
It'll get more fun every day,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
All right, so now we'll get into the aerial lift trucks, which will highlight some of these purchased to show up in use times and some of the time frame that we need to be cautious of and aware of this season. So the primary use for an aerial lift truck, maintaining signs and signals, so stoplights, stop signs, things like that. And then we have some in the operations department for trimming trees, so our forestry trucks. So we have 2 of those currently, one being brand new that some of you may be familiar with when we had purchased a few years ago. So those aerial lift trucks are very beneficial. They're very much specialized. We don't have a lot of them. We don't need a lot of them because we're able to, get most of our work done with just the handful that we have.
Commissioner Green.
Just
Oh,
kind
and
of
no,
curious, is there
go
an
ahead.
element of danger with these trucks? This particular type of truck?
Are they dangerous, did you say? So
Their
they're,
use.
yeah, we
Yeah.
train our employees and they have fall protection, so they're attached with lanyards. And so there's some training involved. There are very few people on our agency that exercise these. This isn't a dump truck, so to speak, where
Right.
most employees can just get in and operate. We maintain that and have our internal training and specialized training to make sure that they are up to standard and skill set before they are aerial.
Okay.
Because there is inherent danger
Yeah, and
being in the air.
I'm looking at this picture, I said,
Yeah, we're
They have a-
very
The
conscious.
harness on.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, we're very conscious of
Yeah.
the danger that is assumed when you go into those. So yeah, we're harnessed in and secured to the vehicle.
Commissioner McCollum.
Yes, when you said specialized, so there's not a standard one? You order it specially, the height and everything, is that?
Yeah,
how-
there's some special build. I mean, there's some generic to the height that they can design and build, but I mean, especially especially for our work that we do.
Oh,
Yeah,
Okay.
there's only a special group, so to speak, that uses them.
oh, okay.
It's not a it's used daily, but it's not a thing that everyone would go out and operate.
I,
Yeah.
okay, I understand.
So I didn't mean to be deceiving there.
No, it's-
Okay,
All right, and then we'll touch on the fleet. We have 6 of these trucks, averaging in size and height and in use, but the average age is 6 years, and the engine hours, because this is considered a piece of equipment, so this is engine hours, 5,900 hours. We'll touch on the replacement schedule is very similar to what you've seen with the grader, which obviously you see a little bit of a trend. So life cycle is relatively uniform in this industry, just tweaks here and there. So we have one truck. Go
Oh,
ahead.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, picture before the slide before,
Mhm.
that fan, what is it? The engine gets real hot or the crane part?
That's
gets-
actually an oil cooler
Oh,
that cools the system. Some of the systems have fluid
mhm,
that power them. So that's a cooler to
okay,
keep that oil cool.
thank
You're welcome.
she's our gearhead commissioner.
Hey, we're gonna have all kinds of fun. We're gonna show her all kinds of stuff. When your time allows, come see us. We have so many cool things. and
Getting
so many
ideas
cool
here.
people to-
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Come visit us. We'll take you to the shop and cut you loose.
And you'll notice that none of them were low parts.
you. Okay, that's all right.
Okay, and then we'll jump to the slide we were on there. So one truck is currently overdue for replacement. This will be used in the signal department. So this is the vehicle that we want to talk about this year that we'd like to come back and make formal recommendation to purchase ahead of time. Because it's about, I believe, 24 months-ish at this point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this is the unit that we would like to buy is almost considered off the lot. So it's been a challenge. So we want to make sure we get that up and get it ordered, and so we can start the waiting game. So we're not doing a bunch of rollover.
As we've done the last few years, this
Yeah.
board has been willing in the fall to authorize purchases for the following year. So that's what we would be doing here, is asking that basically we can get in line for this truck. Because already, we got a quote, just, specking out just in general what it is that we would be looking for, and we're being told to expect a 2024 delivery of this truck.
Mhm.
So it's not, that line's not gonna get any shorter. So what we would like to do, staff would like to do, is to come to this board at the first meeting in September, so September 6th, and ask for authorization. This would be coming out of the 2023 budget. Or even a carryover into 2024,
Right.
depending upon how that
Right.
works. But ideally, this would be planned out of the 2023 budget, but we would at least get in line starting in September.
Commissioner McCollum.
Yeah, so let me get this straight. So we haven't ordered the truck already?
Correct.
That is correct. We have not yet.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's a 24-month?
That is correct. Yes. that's the
Okay,
current-
and this
Got it.
truck is how old?
How old did you?
Yeah, is it 6 years or?
This is, can't remember the years that were probably 10 years, I believe. You have it off the top of your head, Brent.
Oh, yeah, because.
I apologize for not having that. Yeah.
No, that's
I believe
okay.
About 10 years old, if not, I think 10 years.
And we can include that in the
Yeah,
write-up. when
and
we
I can
do-
give you a little
when we-
more-
When we
So it's gonna
request
be
it.
12 years when we replace it.
That's the new truck.
Oh, this is, okay, I apologize.
Okay.
Oh,
So this
okay.
is adding to then.
Oh, adding to.
Yeah,
Oh, that's,
sorry.
that's okay.
So when you plan your replacement schedule now, the window is a whole lot bigger, right?
Yeah.
So where you used to be able to plan for replacement in 12 months, now it's potentially
Yeah.
24. So we're looking at making commitments further.
Like, yeah, year.
The horizon's moving on those kinds of.
Yeah, and moving
commitments.
quickly on us. We're hopeful that within the next year or two, it maybe finds its way a little bit back to more what we consider normal or accustomed to what we're used to working through. But we're not very good at predicting the future right now, so
Right.
we are quickly learning that, 8 years into some of these cycles, we're going to have to heavily consider what are we going to have to request.
Getting in line now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our fund balance would appear even bigger, right? Because we've made a commitment, but haven't put cash on the barrelhead for these
Yep.
vehicles
Yeah,
until they're delivered.
that is correct. So, it's-
Wow.
yeah.
You need a bigger office with a bigger spreadsheet. with-
Yeah, I
with-
think I need some of these screens in there so we can stretch it out. Yeah.
Yes, our spreadsheets have gotten more complicated.
Yeah, so
Now
we've
we keep
actually
talking
added-
about budget year, order year,
Yeah.
delivery, I mean, it's getting.
Yeah, we've
little
added
more
a few
complex.
columns of, and then actual costs, because there could be some inflation in there that
Mhm.
makes some change from start to finish.
So if you order a vehicle today, does that lock in the price if it's going to be delivered in 24 months?
With this particular vehicle, and it also locked in for our trucks. Once they got the final, it's been right at that,
Our heavy trucks.
our heavy trucks, sorry. Those 11 that we had to carry over, that's locked itself
Yeah.
in
Hmm.
and start the waiting game.
Yeah. Commissioner McCollum?
Do we have to seal that deal with funds or it's just a contract we sign?
No, most vendors have good faith in us and they know that once we give them essentially a PO or give them board approval, so we usually just use the consent agenda item, that usually is enough to secure.
That's great.
Yeah, so we have a very good reputation. Dan is very good at processing payments, so the vendors trust us greatly. So
We pay our bills.
that is correct.
That's always good.
Yeah.
That's
And that's been incredibly beneficial to us and will be over the next couple of years as we work through this little bit of gap in the system where everything's kind of stretched out a little longer.
Yeah.
So,
Commissioner Yamas, did I see your hand out of the corner of my eye or? am
Yeah,
I-
but I think that you answered some of it, and I
Okay,
guess what I'm
okay.
trying to do is like how I can continue to see on a balance sheet what we've committed to. Because like you said, it confuses the actual balance
Right.
sheet. So it looks
Right.
like every year we're, like right now, I think we're close to $1 million ahead of budget the last time I looked at things, and I'm thinking, okay, so this in my mind is like, okay, I want to subtract this, I want to subtract that, because that's not actually money in the coffers that are not committed.
We will continue to look at how we can best explain our fund balance.
Okay,
We've had a fair amount of discussion amongst staff on that.
yeah,
Because of course, Dan has to do it a certain way, according to accounting principles and whatnot. And yet, like you, I'm also like, well, okay, in there is this, and I know there's that, and we've tried to show it in various ways. So we'll continue to try to do that and see if there's specific things that you're looking for, what's reserved, what's designated. Like Dan said, there's different terminology for the funds that we know we can't spend. There's unspendables like our inventory. So we'll continue to try to display that as best we can. And certainly if there's certain things you're looking for, I think I'm getting a little bit of an idea of where you're wanting to go with it, which is very similar to the conversation staff has had as well.
Yeah.
We want you to feel comfortable that when we're showing a $16 million fund balance, it's not like if somebody came to us and said, hey, by the way, can you pave this road? We could just write a check and say, okay, for $16 million. We can't. A lot of that is already spoken for.
right.
Yeah.
So, and I know that a budget sheet and our asset sheets, I mean, I know that they can kind of make people glassy eyed, but if I can put them together, I kind of can
Yep.
understand it better.
Yep. Yep. We'll continue to try. And if there's other things you're looking for, please let us know, because usually there's an answer. We just need to make sure that we're explaining it so that you understand.
Thank you.
And then we have our reserve, right? Our rainy day fund that we need to protect as well.
Exactly.
So.
okay, with that, we'll move into the boom mowers. So primary use for the boom mowers, which you're all probably familiar with, woody vegetation from like maintaining that along the roadside. Sight vision, whether it be intersections or vision for signs, signals, whatever the case may be. We also use them just normal routine mowing. We try to, in areas that the brush is encroaching, we try to mow beyond where our contractor mowing services are, because we can be aerial with these, so we can mow off the ground. So we can trim back brush that way. And then also prepping for survey for a lot of the projects that we do, a lot of the culverts that you'll see us doing this fall. We use those units to kind of mow back that brush and make a clear, safe area for our people to kind of be walking and working, and especially our survey group, just to lay out, our plotter points for us. So,
Commissioner Doug Fuller? Oh, no, okay.
I'm shutting down
Sorry,
a
I'm
bit.
trying
Thank
to-
you.
My eyes looking.
We'll go to the next slide here and we'll talk a little bit about the fleet. So our fleet of 6 tractors, we're averaging 3.5 years, 1,500 hours of service time. As you all know, a little change over the last year or so, we had to get a new unit. So we've been able to bump out our replacement schedule that way with one influx of a new unit. So it's kept us in good standing. Not the ideal way of getting new equipment, but we've made it through.
I don't understand what you're talking about.
When the boom mower that we had in District 6 was burnt.
Oh, caught fire. Okay.
Yeah, so that changed our replacement schedule a touch. That unit had the most hours on it at the time. Or had the most use. And so it's not an ideal way to move forward, but
How did it catch fire?
debris in the exhaust system.
So there's been an improvement, right, to deflect that?
Yeah.
In the future,
That is
so we don't.
And our
burn
crews
mowers
also
up
flush
with
it.
Well, we're also checking.
Yeah, our
big
crews are
spot
flushing it now.
tractors.
Once we realized that there actually was an issue.
Uh-huh.
So now we flush our units daily and have found kind of the crevices that debris gets in that we
Interesting.
didn't know existed even at the time. So
Yeah.
We've also found we're not the only ones who've had this issue.
no,
Commissioner Fuller's aware of it because McChrysip,
Yeah.
unfortunately, as members, several of us have had issues.
there have been
with-
multiple bulletins, unfortunately.
Exactly,
For multiple.
this very
areas.
issue.
And different manufacturers as well. It's been a challenge with some of the new exhaust systems.
Did we have any injuries, personnel? Hurt? No.
No,
Okay,
we were very lucky.
yeah.
So the report,
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Green, did you have?
No, I'm sorry.
He was just turning paper.
oh, sorry. Okay, so we'll go to the next
Now we
slide.
got you doing it too.
No,
right?
that's all right.
Okay,
That's
that's okay.
But I do have one question.
Oh,
So what you,
Commissioner Yamas.
I'm sorry, what you don't have on here is the average is $1,500. So is this another thing that's on a,
Yeah, being a piece of equipment, so it's on a replacement schedule where we monitor the hours. It doesn't have miles.
okay, so is this a purchase or is it on a similar program where they buy it back?
Oh, no, these are actually just purchased. These are just purchased.
So you don't have a purchase price for these? And,
Well, here we do on this slide here. We'll go to the
Okay.
next slide and touch on that for you real quick.
oh, okay.
Yep. But yeah, no buyback currently on those. That's not offered on that device or that unit. So our goal for the replacement schedule that you were touching on is 10 years or 8,000 hours. These units are used a little bit differently, so we can adjust our typical hours and idea of how long we can keep it in service. So we've been able to adjust that a little bit. The tractors are proving reliable and doing pretty good for us right now. And at this point, we have no overdue for replacement, so that's a good thing. But the average cost is $150,000.
Is the lead time similar on these?
Lead times, not as long, not 24 months, but you're probably
year.
14, 16 months.
As we were setting up this presentation, I also wanted Adam to touch on certain pieces of equipment that maybe we don't need to replace this year, but I wanted the board to be aware, like, these are essential pieces of equipment that we
Yeah.
use routinely in our business. And so we are in good shape right now, but as you're planning for the future, these are areas we need to make sure that we're budgeting for potentially in future years.
And our goal is to be staggered, so we only have to request when the time comes, one per year, not 5, 6, because we bought essentially 5 beginning just to get us into this program and get us going again. Because the old pieces that we did have for boom mowing, those units were way beyond their years and to the point where we just got rid of them for a few years. And so we were able to start this 3, 4 years ago and start back into using boom mowers. So we're going to stagger that replacement schedule so we're not encumbering such a big cost. And we also don't want an entire fleet to be at age for replacement. We'd like to kind of stagger that as best we can.
Staff response to this new equipment, good or
I love it compared to,
too many widgets and no?
no,
Okay.
this is great comparative to the older ones that were multiple levers in the cab. Just joysticks and it's a little more creature comfort. So, yeah, we've improved our mowing with that.
Mhm.
Also, a lot changes in the 20-year gap between the ones we had to,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was a massive gap. They were decrepit, they were just old.
Yeah.
So we moved on. So now we're better off now. So,
We had some things that were 20 years old that we were using.
yeah. Yeah. To the point where
I
some of them are,
didn't know, Doug.
yeah, didn't do your homework on that, did
I
you?
don't think of.
Now, some of the boom mowers specifically were to the point where they were just actually failing and falling apart on the road. Like just literally falling apart. So we just got to the point we couldn't even maintain the few that we had. I think we had 2. And
Wow.
it just wasn't practical anymore to spend the time or the money. And some of them we couldn't even repair. Some literally just kind of broke in half. And that was all she wrote. So, yeah, we were in a different place at that time, but we're much better now. So very much appreciated that the board's been helpful for that. All right, so we'll go to the next slide. Talk about our pride of the fleet, our great alls. These things do quite a bit of drainage improvements for us, and they keep the summer, they keep the projects moving. Usually everything we touch, we're prepping some type of drainage in preparation of whatever project we're doing. And the 3 great alls that we have keep us moving. The board's been gracious enough to give us the opportunity to get 3. And it is showing, and we'll show the next slide here. That years of service being 2.5 years and the chronometer being 1,900 hours. We're in a very good place right now with those. Most agencies aren't that lucky. So we continue on with that, and we get to use them as much as we can every day.
And those are plugged into the replacement plan?
They are. Yep, we'll touch on that. Yeah, it's a little bit stretched out for them. Just because they've been able to, they're all new at this point.
Right.
So
Right.
we're staggered just enough with about 1.5 years in between, maybe 2 years in between all 3 of them. So we have enough gap that we can systematically start working through those
Okay.
when the time is there. But as you see, we're nowhere close to the 10,000 hours yet or 10 years of service. So we're doing great there. We still have 2 of the 3 that are under warranty. So we're in a very good place with our great alls.
The drainage is fundamental to everything that we do.
Yeah.
So I just,
Literally
again, this
every
is
job
another
we do.
piece of equipment. I'm like, we really need to just touch on this piece of equipment.
Yeah.
Commissioner McCollum?
Yeah, it's not an amount down here for replacement because you're not replacing it, but what would it cost if you did?
Now, honestly, I probably can't even give you a good number because so much has changed. I
What do we pay for the last ones?
think they were over 300,000, I believe,
Dan?
but I don't
He's
remember the
looking.
final.
Yep. Any of the 3?
Yeah, the increase has been likely scary.
And these don't seem to, they have a shorter lifespan or?
It's very similar to our normal goal that we're setting, the 10 years or 10,000 hours. So we'll be at 10 years before we're probably at 10,000 hours, I would think. It seems to trend that way. So less hours than a grader, because in the winter time, it would be more seasonal. A grade all is essentially going to be stored. Very seldom we may use one in the winter to move a fallen tree or a specific drainage failure that we have to do something with in December or January, because the ground freezes and we can't really do much with them. So.
422,000.
Yeah, see. 422,000. Thanks, Dan.
Expensive little puppies.
Yeah.
And what year was that, Dan? We're now into trivial pursuit.
2021.
2021.
2021, yes. Obviously, these things go up in cost each year too.
Wow.
Yep.
So just carry $500,000 in your.
Yeah, that's what I think, and half
Yeah,
million is
I
about
would probably keep
what
that
you'd
in
project.
mind, the way that's increasing.
And this one was what, 325?
Four, 422. Yeah.
And think
I
more.
believe they were
taxes.
325 starting. Yes. Yeah, they are versatile little units.
And we're underutilizing them.
Correct.
No, you may not have one for Christmas.
I don't want one.
Well, at this point, the lead time is probably 3 years. So by the time we can replace, we'll have to move on. So. Okay, so if there are any other questions about great alls, we'll start talking about our.
I don't see any.
All right. We'll touch a little bit about our light and medium duty fleet vehicles, which being our pickups and our 1-ton trucks. So primary uses, it moves WCRC from job to job. Whether it be a medium fleet truck or a light fleet truck, it moves me every day, it moves engineering, all our staff, the over the 50 trucks essentially that we have. It moves everybody and it saves us a lot of money because in years past, when we didn't have as good of a light duty fleet or medium duty fleet, we were taking dump trucks to jobs, which less efficient than a pickup truck, and you can't carry as many people. So these have been amazing additions.
Commissioner McCollum.
Oh, yes, Adam, I see on the picture that this is like a crew cab. Is it because you need more people? It can carry more people to
Correct.
do the,
And yeah, and the truck in that picture there is actually on a state trunk line. So that truck is used on state trunk line. So that crew goes out for guardrail repair, incident management, where we need more people
right?
in the truck. So we have a few crew cabs throughout the county that can take more people. Those are usually on the bigger crews. So our heavy equipment crew, our state trunk line crew, and then the superintendents and myself, we have some crew cabs so we can take a little bit more people with
Saves
us.
on gas and everything. so-
Correct, and even with just work zone awareness, which we've
Mhm.
talked about previously this summer.
Mhm.
Less is more sometimes when
Mhm.
you're in a work zone,
Mhm.
and it kind of keeps our
Mhm.
group in one spot.
Mhm.
Sometimes when we used to have to take multiple vehicles, our zones would stretch out very long
Yeah.
and become a little bit, there could be problems
Yeah.
that come from that, so. But as you see, moves the road crews, the foremen, the supervisors, Waymaster, I didn't mention them, but then the engineering staff as well.
And every now and then we have someone complain because they see a road commission truck in someone's driveway at
Yeah.
home.
Yep.
But you guys are on call 24/7.
Very much, yeah. There are a select few of us that the foremen have to take a vehicle home because their emergent response, superintendents and myself, we're taking vehicles home so we can respond when we have to schedule a large call out, or if it is a major event that they need a little more supervision. So we kind of need to be available. So yeah, we sometimes get those phone calls that are a little bit challenging, but able to explain it, and we have good justification for it and reasoning behind it.
We have a board policy that specifies which
That is correct.
positions are eligible
Yeah.
for that and the purpose and how that works for our organization.
It's very much beneficial. It could be hours before we're able to respond to things as opposed to, in some scenarios, less than a half an hour. So it's a very big difference in response that we can offer. So we're lucky to have that opportunity and have this light fleet that we can do that.
And those always occur after hours or on weekends and holidays.
Isn't that
right?
weird? Yeah.
And there is limitations about carrying other people in the vehicle or using it for personal use. So, and that's all spelled out in the policy.
Yep, it is for moving us and WCRC. Probably the easiest way to note that. And we'll go to the next slide and actually talk numbers of the fleet here. So 56 total trucks, average age of 6 years, almost 6.5 years. And then 94,532 miles is our average odometer reading right now. We will jump to the next slide real quick and actually talk about the replacement schedule as we have with the rest of the group. So as you see, we're still in a good place. We're in good standing, but we do have a lot of trucks, as you can see, that are overdue for replacement. We're still working through, we're still working through the vast portion of the trucks that are getting beyond their lifespan when we didn't have these great opportunities to buy multiple vehicles a year. It's for light fleet. So we're still catching up, but we're staying ahead of our goal. So that's a good thing.
Go ahead.
Yes, Adam, the average replacement cost per truck is 35,000.
And rising, unfortunately.
Whoa, 35,000. So.
Well, yes, for us, it scares us because it continues to increase, but buying off bulk purchasing off of my deal. So
Yeah.
we get very good cost for that. And it's an average cost. So some more, some less,
Right.
depending on the type of vehicle that we need to buy.
I mean, I know you don't have all the gadgets on them and everything, but
Yeah.
still, that's
Very good
not.
price for pickup.
Yeah.
I mean, is it gonna stay that way with everything rising? Oh, you just said it. Mary.
Yeah, it's scary. It's rising a little bit, but we're hoping that it stays in that area within a few $1,000s. That's what we've kind of budgeted for in our estimations right now. It's been hard because the manufacturers aren't even releasing actual price yet. So we're begging, we're
This is
begging
an
for the
example of
troubles.
where we're not locked in. So earlier when the question was, do you lock in on your purchase price for the heavy trucks? When we signed that purchase agreement, we have locked in on the price.
Yeah.
This, because we're buying through the My Deal program, through that bulk purchasing, that until they have capacity in the schedule, which is when we get
Build, yeah,
at-
they build large numbers. at once.
exactly. That's when we would lock in the price. So right now, we've just got a rough estimate of what they cost. Mike Livesey, our equipment supervisor, has done a fabulous job of having a good relationship so that if there's any capacity to get in line,
Yes.
Mike is right there saying, yep, I need 2, I need 3, I need whatever that number or more sometimes, so that we are normally close to front of the line when the opportunities present themselves, but they're not even always there right now.
Yeah, and so that's another benefit, once again, to our reputation. Mike has generated tremendous relationships with these vendors, and we've maintained that. They're reserving things that don't exist, which is good for us. Yeah, we hope to come back to the board and tell you that we missed and we were conservative and it's less than 35,000, but you know, we're not there yet, so.
Commissioner Green.
So given that 27 trucks are overdue for replacement, it means that some purchases must be made very, very soon.
Yes, yep. And we are proposing that for this year to start trying to take bits of that out. And we have our purchases for this year that we're awaiting delivery as well. That'll help with those numbers. So we're trying to buy ahead and stay ahead at the same time, which is going to be hard.
Commissioner Yamas.
So how much of the money that we have in reserve that we didn't use in 2022 that have been rolled over to 2023 are going toward these trucks?
I believe we had 17 this year that we purchased, but I can't remember the cost off of the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Because that's the problem right now, because we're ended up, some of these overdue numbers are blending with what we haven't received yet. So
So there are some of these, this 27 number is not quite right, correct? Because we have some ordered of these pickup trucks.
Well, are
Okay.
they ordered at this point, Adam, or we're just,
well,
we
yeah,
have authorization? to
yeah, we have
purchase,
authorization.
But we haven't
when
been
they're
able to
released.
order them.
Okay, so we have authorization to order how many?
I believe it was 17, I believe this year.
So,
I'll have to
we
get back
already
to you.
have the money set aside for the
It
17.
was budgeted
correct?
in
It was
2022,
Correct.
right? But we can clarify that piece of it.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
get that clarification and give you an actual vehicle
All right.
or unit number. Right. Go to the next slide and talk a little bit about our specialty equipment. And as you can read on the slide, you know, this is specific task-based work that we're using this equipment for. So a backhoe for excavation in close quarters or setting guardrail. And then in more urbanized areas, catch basin repairs, and then culvert repairs and culvert replacement. It can be anywhere from maintaining the endings of the culvert, so where the water goes in, water comes out, the inlet or the outlet area, or actually replacing smaller culverts. And obviously specialty equipment also including the grade all, that's larger scale drainage improvements. And we touched a little bit earlier about some of our rollers. I'll highlight those just so something we don't talk about often here. We have steel drum rollers that are used to compact aggregate that's spread on the limestone or gravel hauling projects. And then we also have pneumatic, which are rubber tire rollers that you see on our chip seal project that are used to just embed the stone into the CM90 into the liquid that we use. So we have two different types of rollers that we use, but very critical pieces of equipment for a very special task that are used just in the summer months when we're working construction projects. And they're all new, so we're in a very good place with that, so.
Are
Commissioner
these
McCollum.
like, yeah, are these like accessories attachment you attach to?
No, these are actually pieces of equipment. They're just used very specifically.
Hmm.
Yeah, so no attachments. They're just a standalone piece of equipment.
Okay.
Adam,
Mhm.
at least looking at our budget document that was just reviewed in July and approved in early August, we have 21 pickups.
Yep, yeah, we added 4 to it.
Yep.
Okay,
Exactly, and that was almost $800,000.
Okay, so we approved 21 pickups, right?
But we've not taken delivery on them yet, right?
No,
Some of them we haven't even been able to order. We're waiting.
yeah, they haven't released the builds.
but we already have
manufacturers.
funds set aside for that,
Mhm.
correct?
Yep.
So
And
that-
we added 4 to keep ourselves in line, and then some vehicles that have kind of reached their limit or have failed. Some of the older ones, we added 4 from the time in June that I took over to now, so that 17 turned to 21 with those four. A few vehicles that were well beyond their limits finally decided they were done. So we had to add a few more this summer. And then finally, on the specialized equipment, there was a picture quite early on in the program, the chip spreader that's used for chip seal. So that's a specialty piece of equipment that gets used just on that project to spread the stone, the aggregate for the chip seal project. So kind of wraps up our specialty equipment. Probably hear occasionally about the loaders. We use the loaders to load salt, any material that we load. Also use to remove trees in the summertime or sometimes in the winter when they decide to fall that are too big for us to cut in the middle of the night. So we'll use those loaders for that occasionally, but most of the time the loaders used for actually loading material. So a great piece to have. And once again, we're in a good place with those two. So. Okay, so we'll touch a little bit on some of the proposals, which we've kind of talked about here and there throughout. We would like to purchase one new heavy truck, signal aerial lift truck that we discussed, and then 10 pickups, which will get us back very close to the number of the 27 that we need for replacement. And then 3 graders, 2 with a buyback, one that's reached its limit of lifespan, and then 2 backhoes that also have a very similar buyback to the graders.
Commissioner McCollum.
Yes, the medium duty truck, what is that?
So that medium duty truck, we refer to them as a 1-ton, but it's going to be a small dump truck essentially that we use for pothole patching. So the crew cab that we made note of on the state trunk line picture, similar to that, a little bit larger, but very similar to that now. That truck that was in that picture is a few years old. So the machines have changed or the units have changed a little bit in the meantime.
Thank you.
Yep,
And this is what we would be proposing in the 2023 budget,
correct.
which you'll see formally later this fall.
Commissioner Yamas?
I guess, yeah. So I've been keeping track of your presentation. So I saw
Mhm.
one aerial lift truck, one grader, heavy trucks. One at, I forgot how many heavy trucks.
We had 11 that have already been
So you need
essentially
one.
just
right?
one additional. Yep.
At 310, because I was trying to do my own math here. And the graders, I saw that you only needed one, but you have 3 down here. And I guess I missed the backhoes, but
Yeah, the backhoes are part of the specialized equipment. Their buyback is coming due this year
right,
and our hours are starting to reach up. So that's why those are gonna have to be on. that.
okay. Okay. So the pickups. I think that number should be 6 instead of 10. Or you have a wish list for 10 on there
Yeah,
because we already have approval for 21.
Correct.
Right?
Yep.
So that means we only need 6 more instead of 10 more.
Yeah, the 10 is the wish list and knowing that likely some of the older ones won't make it through the year.
We'll have more
Winter.
come due. This is
Yeah.
just forever continuing to
keep us
revolve.
moving.
So we currently have, what was the number now? I'm getting mixed up.
There's
27.
27 due.
27.
Due.
We have
due,
21 that we've ordered.
Right.
21 ordered.
Yeah,
Right.
so yeah, the number would come back down to 6, but our wish list of 10, knowing that some of our very old trucks aren't going to make it through the year. And then we have a few of our newer trucks that will make that lifespan of 100,000 miles in 2023.
So part of this report would be how many of your trucks are very old and where are they at? I guess is.
Right, this
my
is
thing.
keeping us in that, trying to keep the average where we want it to be. So we'll have purchased some, we'll be in line for some, and then we'll have more that are coming due, so we need to continue to add to that. If that makes sense.
Trying to follow the line and keep our mileage
Okay.
goal set.
Are you uncomfortable with the number 10?
But
I
I'm,
think
it should be 6, but I understand also the reasoning that there are some other ones that you have that you don't have in this report that are nearing that.
Yeah,
So I'd feel more comfortable if I knew what that number was. Yeah.
most of which are usually a foreman truck because they're driven so much. that
Yeah.
The foreman trucks will make their way up the line very quickly because they'll get to the 100,000 mile mark long before the 10 years.
Right. Okay.
And we can provide more.
Yeah,
info
Adam
on
and
that
Mike have a
specifically.
spreadsheet
Yeah,
that they're monitoring. And so we have a sense of what's coming due. And so that's the first piece of information that we're looking at. We've also been trying to look at an overall number for next year as far as budget, just overall round numbers for budget. So they were given a number to work with and for equipment for next year that they're trying to work within. So everything doesn't completely align just because we're
Right.
trying to stay within like multiple parameters.
Yep.
But certainly if you've got more detailed questions or we can explain where those additional trucks would be going, we can
Yeah.
do that.
So the ask
we
won't
can show
be now, right? But this is for later
This
on.
is,
and
we're
this-
giving you an idea of where we're going to be, what we will be staff will be presenting for the 2023 budget.
Okay,
Yes, that's what the.
okay.
and then,
Green?
oops, sorry.
I think I may have missed it. What are the backhoes used for?
So the backhoes are more of that specialty group, and the reason why I didn't really put it in the presentation, we only own 2 in the county.
Uh-huh.
They're guardrail, small drainage repair,
Okay,
working on the ins and outs, so the inlet and the outlet, so where the water goes in and out of a culvert. Those units are small enough, they can get in there and dig that really quickly, without taking our large gradalls out there.
okay,
And so, you know, more confined areas that we use those in.
sure. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Then, as we've noted previously, our auction proceeds obviously give us that shot in the arm to keep that fund going. So those are a little bit, we can't quite estimate that at this point because we don't know what we get from proceeds, but as we get the proceeds, that starts to offset some of the costs. So,
So this is what you'll see when we, again, this fall, when we go through the 2023 budget, and this will be laid out, you'll see this equipment in there. The one thing that we would be potentially asking for authorization for next month would be this aerial, the signal aerial lift truck. Just again, that one, we feel like we need to get ahead of the line. The others, we understand, even with the timeframes, that we can live with waiting until we have actual formal approval of the 2023 budget, which would be in December.
we'll
Right
also
now, we
have a
have how
little-
many of those trucks? Aerial lift.
We have 6,
Six.
and then we're going to add this one, but we have an old truck that we use that's at its limit. Not for the signs and signals group, but we use it for forestry at this time.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So now we will move into the facilities update.
I'd suggest we take a 5-minute break here. Let
Okay.
people get up and stretch for a minute, maybe.
All right.
That'd be okay with everyone?
Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to just take a brief break.
Okay.
And come back no later than 10:30. Thank you. Mr. Lape, facilities update.
All righty. Okay. So we will, just like with the shop, we're going to meet the team. So Dennis Bussey, who is joining us virtually, is our facility supervisor. We have Kevin Heller, who's our facility worker. Then we have William Harris, which is an assistant facility worker.
He's the happiest employee you've showed us yet,
Hey.
Adam.
That's why we like Will. Randy Schneider is assistant facility worker as well. Small team, but very powerful. Their responsibilities, they provide general building maintenance and grounds maintenance throughout the year. The responding to emergencies, whether it be call from our after hours security or issues in the building, whether it be a sprinkler head broke or things like that, that we've dealt with in the last 2 years, or in for snow and ice. So they get to come in as well to make sure the parking lot's good for when the rest of our team shows up in the morning to work in an administration building. So they keep themselves very busy, and they are here with us in the operations department, just like our shop is, and with all our drivers chasing snowflakes. So they're a great group. They also manage some of our contracts with our vendors for the building automation systems. So for HVAC, our alarms and security. So that's where some of the emergent response comes in, because we have some automated systems that thankfully give us notes if we're having some issues in the off hours. So they'll come in to respond to those. And then also they manage the contract for our housekeeping here at the administration building, and then at the 2 service centers. So Northeast and Southeast Service Center. And then we have a little bit of a split slide here. On the left side of the slide, we have basically all the areas that hauled us, the WCRC employees. And then on the right side of the screen, the brine well and storage lots and some of the inactive gravel pits kind of hold some of our materials for us at this agency. So obviously we have our main yard here in Seed Road. We have the Southeast Service Center, we have the Northeast Service Center, the Chelsea Yard and the Manchester Yard. And those house district crews as well as some of our specialized crews for sign department, signal department, and state trunk line heavy equipment come out of this main yard as well as our District 1 crew. And there's just a little map kind of highlighting our areas, property that we have throughout the county. And then we'll touch on the next slide a little bit of the capital projects.
Hang
for-
on, I think
Oh, I'm
Gloria
sorry.
was trying to,
I'm
this,
sorry.
this is really tiny. so
Oh, I'm
this-
sorry.
No, that's all right. This map is.
Okay, so the southeast is 2, Pittsfield Township, right?
That is correct.
And the northeast is 3?
Is actually straight up in Northfield Township.
Okay,
It's actually considered our yard 6, but that's our Northeast Service Center for District 6.
okay. So I'm always trying to put together, sometimes all of you speak in numbers, or
Sorry.
yards. And
Um,
as I like start to get, I know that southeast is Pittsfield Township
Mhm.
too.
Pittsfield, Ypsilanti, yep.
Yeah.
So what I'll run you through there on the top left of your map, where the 3 is, that would be the Chelsea Yard. That's actually located in Chelsea. That's our District 3 group. And then just go south there. So the southwest corner is District 4, and then the Manchester Yard is at District 4 facility.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And what's the current thinking on yard 3 in Chelsea, that location? And have we had discussions about moving it?
I don't think we've had any formal discussions.
Yeah,
There's
not formally.
some. I've heard it expressed that when we get to that point, which is probably another 20 years or so, that we move it to our gravel pit out there on North Territorial, which I don't remember the name of.
Otto,
The auto pit,
Auto
right.
pit, yeah.
We've had various thoughts on it.
Right.
First and foremost is that we would love to get out of the city of Chelsea.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that is obviously number one. Other thoughts have, then we said, okay, well, where would we go? And we had some conversation when at one point we talked about combining both the Manchester and the Chelsea, but we feel that from a service perspective, we really feel that we need to keep ourselves in sort of the
Correct.
quadrants, so to speak,
Yeah.
as far as the county goes. So we do have property on North Territorial. That's the auto pit there. Not sure that that's the best location to service the quadrants. So certainly when we had a similar situation years and years ago with District 6, and at that point where we were located, we kept our eyes open, and when the time was right and there was a piece of property that made sense for us, that is when we purchased where is now the Northeast Service Center. And I would suggest that that is what we continue to do for District 3, is
Yeah.
keep our eyes open, and if there seems to be a piece of property that makes sense from a service perspective, then we can examine if it's right for us and if we're in a position at that point to purchase property.
the auto pit connectivity isn't ideal
Mhm.
for internet service and just service in general. So connectivity would be a bit challenging there. But yes, operationally, within the districts comparative to a service center of multiple crews would be challenging because we'd have essentially 2 townships to get to the bottom of the county or 2
Yeah.
townships to get to the top of the county. Could slow our services, which we did see as we had to make those changes. That are part of a decade ago in District 6, moving them to the Southeast Service Center for some time. Challenging during snow and ice and just response in general.
And then with the flex lane, that turned out to be prescient in a way that we never would have understood when we
Yeah.
first started looking at that.
Amazing timing. And it's improved our service to Mdot as well as
Yep.
the District 6, those 4 townships.
Yeah.
It's almost unmeasurable how much it's improved our service.
If there's an internet connectivity question or issue for the auto pit, would you please let me know?
At this point, other than unfortunately just being surrounded by earthen walls, because we've, so much has been excavated out. That seems to be our initial perception, is just that we can't get reception because the hills are so tall beside us. Because it is an old pit, so it's down in a little bit.
I don't think anybody on this board is gonna be likely to be here when that decision is reached, because we've put a lot of money in Chelsea in the last decade, and that investment won't have been worked out for at least 20 more years in my mind. Though if the right opportunity came up, I suppose we could ignore that. It would have to be we've spent a fair amount of money on the building, on the actual shop building itself. We put a new salt barn there. We're continuing to put some additional funds
Yeah.
to make ourselves better neighbors.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
just keep our look tidy.
Anyway,
Okay. So we'll touch a little bit on the 20. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yes. So the capital projects, 2022, the main yard, and in green, it says in progress. Is that what's happening now? It's going to be finished at the end of the year?
No, we're in the design process and site planning right now.
Oh,
Working
that's,
on
this is what 2022 is.
currently, yeah.
Design,
this is
site
this-
planning and permitting. Okay.
Yep. And then Cheryl maybe make some notes on it as well, but we'd like to, formally come back to the board once we finalize some of that design.
Okay.
So we're also performing some security upgrades here at the main yard, really just updating cameras to current. We have a couple that are pretty old and they're failing, so we're able to essentially remove 2 cameras and put 1 back that see just enough of our facility that we need. So just updated work on the system. It helps our IT department as well. Everything kind of sits and fits together, as well as card readers. So just more access for employees to come in and come out. Adjust some access with some of the elevator. Because at this point we don't have a card reader there. So I'm going to kind of keep that a little more manageable when we have public events. So we don't have we've had people kind of make it to the wrong floor, unintentionally just make it to the wrong floor. So
Making what?
make it to the wrong floor. So they went up instead of down. essentially.
Oh.
And then they're wandering free through the building.
Yeah.
Again, unintentional, but not
Sure.
good from a security perspective.
Mhm.
So yeah, just improvements there.
And what about you said the Chelsea yard?
Yeah, we'll touch on that here, I believe on the next slide. Just some minor improvements just to kind of keep our look and keep our aesthetic
Okay.
for the city. So Manchester in District 4, their garage roof is reached its limit. So we're currently designing and hopefully go out to bid this fall to replace that roof. Initially, and we'll make note of here on the next slide, actually, Emily, if you can maybe go to that for me. Thank you. Excuse me. So the original plan was to put a truss package roof on it. So similar to our Chelsea yard, which that discussion may have been had a touch. But that really wasn't cost effective this year. It was triple the price. So we're going to just replace with what we already have, replace in kind. We've had some leaking above the office, so things that we'd like to
You need to
replace.
talk just a little
Oh, I'm
louder.
sorry.
That's okay.
So nearly 3 times the cost to update it to how our District 3 garage has, so a truss package for a roof. The existing roof, we're just going to replace in kind. It's worked for us this long. It's a lot cheaper, but we've been seeing leaks in the roof above the office, so we want to get that squared away before winter time. So that's the 2022 project that we want to go out to bid for here soon.
Okay.
We don't like flat roofs, but at the end of the
Right.
day, we can't afford anything other than a flat roof right now. So we
Yeah.
replace what
3
is
times
there.
as much, so just
Right.
exponential increase. Just, yeah, tough. And material was a delay. We would be seeing some delays if we bought the truss package as well. So we just had to make I think in June, we had to make a decision just to start working on designing in kind and replacing in kind. And so then for 2023, the wish list is to continue at the main yard, to demolish the top structure of the salt dome that is current. We'll maintain the ring around it, and that's basically going to be a corral that we can store material. It's not failing, just the roof is showing its age, and we'd like to remove that, and obviously building a new salt barn. We won't have need for that dome any longer.
So when you say you're going to maintain the ring around it, how
So
does that?
there's a foundation. It's kind of hard to show, but if you look at the big screen, where the plows are sitting around, there's a 4.5, 5 foot tall concrete ring wall that's poured, so it's still has plenty of life in it. So we can use it actually to store material in there once we demolish the roof. So it'll be similar to what we're gonna talk about, maintaining material at the Chelsea yard when we get to that slide. Somewhere for us to put material where it's not going to get scattered amongst everything else or intermix.
So if you go inside that wall, you can store things. What?
Yeah, so the roof, the dome portion, so the white portion of the screen will be removed. It'll be demolished, and then there'll just be a giant ring. So we'll be able to just store material in there.
Okay,
So
so it'll
basically
be
it'll look like a wall.
open?
Yes. that's
Oh,
correct.
okay,
Yep, it'll just look like a wall, and then we'll be able to divide material up inside.
okay.
So if we have a material pile, we can push up against it in order to be able to, remove materials, that type of thing, as opposed to then just, to push against a pile after a while, you push it over.
And
Right.
it's beneficial to have a hard
Okay.
surface underneath our stockpiles, as much as we can, because then you don't get contamination. You don't end up digging too deep or finding something that you don't want, in the pile, so.
Is there a storm
Recycle.
drain in that floor?
No, there is not. Everything's sloped inward, so it all gets to stay there. And then the Southeast Service Center, we have some roof repairs we need to make in 2023, and then replace some of the rapid units, so the HVAC system, which is all part of a process of bringing it up to date with a building automation system, where it's electronic and it talks back to the main yard, and all our package kind of talks together. So Dennis will be able to see the function of our buildings from his seat, that's almost like a dashboard.
We're
So
going to upgrade our truck wash facility at the same time.
not currently discussed, but not out of the picture either, though. We're making small improvements over the past few years, just updating the
Yeah.
pressure washers, things like that.
Why don't we see how much a large improvement might cost?
Fair enough.
I think the board would be interested in hearing a presentation on that.
Okay,
At least this board member would.
all right. And then we'll touch real quick on the Northeast Service Center. So we'll go to the next slide. Thank you, Emily. Northeast Service Center, as you'll see when we touch base here on it, here further in the presentation. Pretty good building, pretty much new. We just want to seal the parking lot. We have some soft pavement or flexible pavement, so asphalt out there. We'd like to seal it up so it doesn't get to a point where we have to do major repairs. Basically waterproof it.
What's RPE?
Rapid penetrating emulsion. So it's essentially a waterproofer, but it is not chip seal. It just gets sprayed on top, darkens the color just a little bit of the pavement, and that sealer is there. That's what it's there for.
Similar to a fog seal.
Very much, just thin with not much color. Yep. And then the Chelsea yard, upgrading material storage, which is hard surface for the material to sit on, and some bin blocks to kind of corral it, to give us something to load against and give us cells to stack our material in. Reasoning for that is to help with the aesthetic of the yard and also help our operation just function better, so we don't have contaminated material, getting different stones, so to speak. If we're taking a bigger stone, we don't want little stones in the way. Just kind of keep things separated that way, but will help with the look of the yard as well.
Some of our neighbors in Chelsea object to our backup alarms because we go to work at not necessarily sociable hours. It starts snowing, and we decide to load trucks at 10 o'clock at night. You're going to get backup alarms.
Right.
Yeah.
And we have houses that are close to our yard, like across the street.
Yeah.
And we're not necessarily at that point in time real popular, which is the advantage of moving out of Chelsea.
Not always received some of the noise with our work that we do. We'll go to the next slide actually and look inside the salt shed, or in the salt, the salt dome. So it's very hard to see, but there's a little white ring kind of painted at the bottom, what's left of it, which will be that wall that'll be existing once they take the roof down. And this is for next year's goal as well.
Is that floor asphalt or concrete?
It is asphalt. Yeah. Aged asphalt.
Seasoned too.
Seasoned, yes. Seasoned with plenty of salt.
Commissioner Yamas?
So you're talking about taking the dome off and leaving the curved walls?
Yeah, well, not the curvature, just there, it'll look like, just like a a wall, like a concrete wall. It won't have any curvature to it, only be a few feet tall.
So what would keep whatever we have against the walls from washing away when it rains?
The slope of the floor, the way they built these sheds back when they built them, it's to just keep anything like, so water can't take material back out.
Okay,
So it just stays in there.
in the center.
So it's just a retaining wall is what will be left.
Right.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, you know, on some of these rainstorms, I mean, you don't anticipate the water level ever getting high enough?
No, it will evaporate likely long before it ever reaches to that point.
Okay,
It may puddle a little bit, but even at that, if it's in the summer, the asphalt, just the ground itself will get so warm that it'll evaporate probably quicker even than it can build up. And then in the winter months, we really won't be in there often, so it'll just probably be frozen underneath the snow.
Yeah,
It's
and
an
they are
interesting
still
question.
4 to 5.
But that is a very
4
good
to 5.
question.
They are still 4 to 5 feet tall,
Yeah.
so that's a lot of rain.
okay.
Yeah,
Which, given what has happened in Kentucky in the last 2
Well-
weeks, is not necessarily an unreasonable, like,
Never say never, just
Exactly.
that would be a lot of rain.
yeah. Our goal is to not learn how to manage that part of it. And then if you can, Emily, we'll go to the next slide and we'll look at the site plan from 2018, which has probably been seen in some shape or form through everybody on the board. Originally, the site plan was set up to have a maintenance facility. We'll call it in the southwest corner, in the salt barn in the northwest corner of the property. We will jump to the next slide because things have changed and our salt shed is aging, our salt dome current is aging. We are not in the place that we need to build a new parking building. So we had to adjust the site plan to bring the salt barn back.
Bless you.
Back closer to our current day-to-day operations, so we're not spending a fortune paving and excavating and leveling land, 300-400 feet away from where we even do business right now today.
Does that make sense?
Go to the previous slide so my brain can.
So we basically, we kind of switched them.
Right. So originally back in 2018, when we were looking at how we ideally wanted to operate, we had the salt barn pretty much as far away from where we currently are today as possible. And knowing that our most immediate need at this yard is to replace that salt dome. We looked at moving it closer so that we don't have to do, otherwise we'd have to do all that site work. We'd have to,
Yeah.
build that out so that we can get back to that
It's
spot.
not flat out back.
Right, that would be quite expensive. That's a lot of dirt to move around and a lot of pavement to have to put in place, because keep in mind the types of vehicles that we're driving to get out there to get loaded and whatnot. So, so what we did is we decided to move the salt barn closer to where the existing salt dome is today, so that we can have as close to continuous operations as we do today, as soon as we build that salt barn. So we basically flip-flopped things around in the yard.
We just maintain our current status, so we're not building new roads and
So the building you had where the salt barn is identified now has been moved up and north and west.
Correct.
yes, yes.
Okay, okay.
And we can give you a little bit more information about this at the next board meeting, because what we would like to do is to get the board's approval of this revised site plan. And this is a pretty significant change to what
Yes.
we had
Yeah.
originally proposed as far as a master plan goes. Because to Commissioner McCollum's question earlier, we are in the design process, but hopefully we're getting to the point with the salt barn where we would like to go before Scioto Township's Planning Commission to start the approval process. But obviously, we want this board to understand why staff is recommending changes and why we would like to change the master plan as proposed before we go before Scioto Township.
And the master plan is that big document from Hobbs and Black, right, from many years ago?
It's right, it's what
Yeah.
Hobson, yes, exactly.
Okay,
So now updated, or will be eventually updated once we formalize it with the board.
okay. Gloria, did you have a question?
I did. So maybe it's in that master plan and I don't remember it because I don't think I was on the board in 2018.
Right.
So future property sale of 55, this building in the future, you plan on selling that? Future property sale of 555 North Sea Road, is that not this building?
That is this building. We are not proposing that that happen right now. In looking at the master plan for this site, we were looking at options. And one of them would be that one of the more valuable parts of our site is the frontage that we have along Zeeb Road. So in the future, we may think about selling this where we are right now today, and then being able to relocate the administration building further back, really behind Scioto Township Hall. That's up
Okay.
in sort of the middle north on the site plan.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
And so that was kind of the driver that started the initial site plan, is that something major change like that would have had to drive that reasoning for a new building, new salt, that major change on our site.
okay,
So that's how that was kind of initiated in 2018, is prepping for that.
Right.
The degradation of our salt dome kind of called for the need to adjust this a little bit, because it's degrading quicker than, we're prepared for. So that's where the new salt shed or salt barn, excuse me, came into play. And so that's how the site plan started changing.
Been doing inspections on the salt dome and have reached the point where we need to replace the salt dome. That's going to be an emergency that we would prefer not to have be an emergency. That it does need replacing now.
We had a failure to essentially recover our salt, which would be challenging during an event. That might have material, and having worked through that in other agencies within this state have had to work through that as well. It's problematic. We would quickly exhaust everything else we had in the county, and our service level would drop quickly if we ran into that issue. So, but this is more of just a general kind of update on that. We will formalize that and have that discussion at length with the new salt shed. If there are any other questions, we'll jump to a little bit more description of the salt shed. So obviously a lot more to come. Cheryl noted on most of that. The Mdot contract approval portion, as I'll highlight, we have a partnership opportunity with Mdot to supply some funding, approximately half of the funding for this specific material storage portion of that building. And then there's a small fraction of the design that we can get into a partnership agreement with the state. And then they will audit that when our project is complete, and we will get some reimbursement for that. So once again, Mdot is carrying some of the load for us. Rightfully so, because we are working on their highway system as well. But it's a great opportunity, and we've been lucky to be offered that opportunity. So, and then to finish up, just complete the design, prepare bid documents once we speak with the board formally, and start working that out to bid. And then you see the bottom line there, we hope to construction in 2023.
Will we last that long? Will we be okay?
Sorry, well, we should be fine. We've moved all the, and I don't remember what year that was. I think it was last year or 2 years ago. We've moved all the material in, so we don't weight any of the walls inside the building now. So we've reduced how much we store,
Yeah.
how much we stockpile.
Yeah.
So we're basically just living under the tarp of the dome.
Okay.
So we don't touch it. We don't go there. We don't help it out. Yeah, we don't want to help it find its way down.
Okay.
So
but
we
yes,
think we can
it is.
make it, but that doesn't make you feel good when you say to people, don't touch it.
Yeah, but we are at least safe when we're in there. But we don't intend on poking it to try to make it move. So,
Okay.
and then we'll go to the next slide and talk about the Southeast Service Center, which I touched on real quick on some of the wish list items. It was built in 1999. The systems are aging, which is understood. The roof repairs and the HVAC replacement. HVAC is expensive to maintain. Our systems are essentially outdated. So we're trying to get ourselves updated and then bring in those building automation systems to manage that for us.
Commissioner McCollum.
Yes, this looks like a steel roof on most of this, is it, or no?
Yeah, it's everywhere except for, so all the storage area and the mechanics bay, which is on the, call it the left side of your picture. Yeah, all that is steel roof, and then it is just a regular truss with
Right.
shingle roof over the
So
the
that's,
administration area. and
would that be the
truss.
one
All
that needs,
areas. We're just
even the
maintaining,
still? I thought that.
just
last-
maintaining areas where they've had leaking issues.
Oh,
And if they see wear, just simple maintenance, not complete replacement.
Oh,
by
okay.
any means.
okay.
Yeah, just repairs.
30 years old.
I thought they last forever.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah,
The steel roof. so-
Steel roof.
Buy one lately?
No.
I have one on my garage. It's over 30 years old and pretty good.
yeah,
Pretty good
they do pretty
condition.
good. They just get a little, they start to leak a little here and there, and so we've kind of exercised that repairing the leaks, but we want to make sure we make a comprehensive repair to everything. Keep the water off of us. And then the Northeast Service Center, we're in a very good place there. This is that sealing the pavement areas there. Built in 2017, so we're just preventive maintenance at this point. We worked most of the kinks out of it and we really like it, so we're gonna take care of it so it stays nice and shiny and in a good place for our crew to be. And then the Chelsea yard, which we touched on. So the piles in the middle of the screen, you can see there by the salt shed. There, Emily's highlighting those for us. Thank you, Emily. We just want to organize the materials better, and we'd like to eliminate the segregation of rocks, stones, dirt that we don't want kind of contaminating each pile. So we'll hopefully get a hard surface down, and then next year we'd like to get some bins. And those are just concrete blocks essentially that we can rank that material up there. Try to keep our site a little more tidy.
Commissioner McCollum.
Now, these buildings, they weren't built in the 1920s, were they?
The main building, yes. The salt shed, which is, so there's a main building, right? Would be in the kind of middle left of your screen. And then directly north of that, there's a cold storage building, which is now we've heated and insulated. So that's newer, I think in the early 2000s, I believe. And then same with the salt shed that was
Okay,
replaced in the early 2000s as well. So those buildings are obviously newer and
right.
a lot more life in them. Yeah. You can see comparative to the Manchester yard, we talked about the roof. And you see how that truss package gives you a nice peaked roof there that matches the rest. That was the initial plan. That's where the cost became exponential. And so we're going to maintain as is for the Manchester yard, which we'll kind of make a little note here shortly.
And you can see how close the houses are to this yard.
Yeah, the proximity is very much. the same.
Yes.
Yeah. We've luckily been there for a long time, but
We were there first.
yeah, we were very much there first.
What's your point?
Yeah, really.
Right?
Very much the point, but
And the majority of the
Management.
people that live in Chelsea think that our yard is the city's yard.
Oh, of
Yeah.
course.
so they're often visiting for things that we can't help much with, but luckily we have a great relationship with the city group, which is kind of up by the mix factory. On the
No, we have a
north
new
side of the
city
mix factory.
manager that I haven't yet met over there.
Yeah, they've had some change there. I don't think many of us have. They've had some temporary management,
Yeah, I know.
so.
They had an interim. I hadn't realized. it.
Oh, no, they've appointed a new guy.
Oh, yeah, so that's even more development there.
I
We'll
can't
have
even say his name right now, but he's very much the new manager.
All right, we will
Oh,
introduce ourselves.
Good. Okay, well, that brings us to any questions in general on the next slide.
Questions, anyone?
Okay.
Well, as we said, we will be back in September, early September, to present what we would like to ask for changes or, to the master plan for this, just for the site. So that we are prepared and moving forward and you can understand, again, why we'd moved the salt barn, where we had moved the salt barn.
Yeah, very specific information to
Mhm.
this site then.
Yep.
So,
And I've always been impressed with how mindful staff is about utility. We're not talking Taj Mahals on any of this. It's just what can we do to maintain our service level and make sure our employees are safe.
Yep.
when they're working.
And mindful that whatever we build in 2023 is gonna be what we're living with in 2073.
Very
Some
much
of us
so.
will be living with it. Some of us won't be living with it. Right? Somebody's going to be living with it.
That unfortunately, I don't have a slide to help you. out.
I
fact,
don't want to see that spreadsheet.
Fair enough.
So- Any
well-
questions?
Very good presentation.
Thank you.
Mm.
Well, thank you to everybody. We all put some time into it and this is a team effort, so I'm appreciative of that as well. It's been a good opportunity to touch things up and
Yeah.
make a good look.
A
for
lot of
everybody. So,
information here.
Yeah,
Very good.
thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
All right.
Cheryl?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you very much. Just a couple little things that I'd like to highlight for you. One of them is that before you, I had asked Aaron to put out this Lima Township. It was
Okay.
a survey that was filled out by a property owner, Mr. Larry Watella. He lives on Dexter Chelsea Road. He came in at the end of last week and dropped off a letter that went to a variety of Washtenaw County departments as well as the road commission, and it has to do with use of the Bowling corridor and a segment of the border to border trail, specifically from Wiley Road to Parker Road. He's in that vicinity. So you will see that communication in the next board packet. He did not drop it off in time for us to include it in this board packet. So we put that under written communications. That was a formal communication. As you can see, he had written, please share on here on his survey results. So I didn't feel it was quite appropriate to put it in the board packet, but I also felt an obligation to share it. So that is why you have that before you, just for your information. There's obviously different feelings of property owners along that segment. This is the unconstructed portion between Wiley and Parker.
He put a lot of time in this.
Oh, absolutely.
I just really commend people that
the
do that. with
mythical Boylan right of way,
Surveys.
which does not exist.
Correct. And this is something that we have certainly heard quite a bit about over the years. I've actually spoken with Mr. Watella in the past. He is a very polite person, at least in my exchanges with him. So again, he's very thoughtful, and I felt the need to share that and, you know, to at least carry out his desire on that. So
And why did he want you to share it with us? So we could read his responses or know the survey was being conducted or?
I think he wanted you to be aware of the fact that people have different opinions along, as property owners along that corridor.
Ah, okay.
So the answers here are his
His.
answers?
They're his answers, his opinions,
Okay,
that's-
just one person.
one person.
Okay, thank you.
So that is,
Where does he think the Bowen corridor stops?
I don't know. I've not asked him that question. Anything else on that? All right, so there was that. The next thing that I wanted to touch on is that we have before you a revision this afternoon. We have as an action item. Yes, thank you, Matt, for stepping up. This afternoon, we have an action item, which is to schedule we're asking the board to approve scheduling a public hearing. This afternoon, we had originally proposed for setting the role for the York Timber Ridge Special Assessment District. That was what is in your board packet. Late breaking news is that yesterday morning, we did receive a petition for reconsideration from that neighborhood. And at the time, it contained signatures and that signified over 51% of linear footage within the neighborhood. So what we are proposing is that for this afternoon, instead of scheduling a public hearing for setting of the role, that be modified to setting a public hearing to hear the petition for reconsideration. So I'll let Matt explain the details of that, as well as where we stand right now with respect to signatures.
Yes, Matt Mcdonald, Director of Engineering. Regarding the York Timber Ridge Special Assessment District, we've had a number of steps that we've taken in the process, including, as you may recall, the bids came in high and we had to have a second hearing for the public to react to the bids being over 10%. That opened the door for an opportunity for them to hear that and then also circulate a petition if they wanted to for reconsidering moving forward with that project. So the time frame for that petition was due yesterday. It came in. We looked at the lineal frontage. It was 53%. One other check is that we sent it over to the township to see if any of those signatures were a property that was delinquent in taxes. So that review has been done as well. Gets a little tricky here now. So they were at 53%. Now got news that one of the parcels with significant frontage, over 600 feet of frontage, is delinquent in taxes. It then moved the threshold down to 49%. That what I would recommend that this board still schedule the hearing to listen to the petitioners. And we could certainly allow for more time for signatures to be collected as well. There's obvious change of heart in that neighborhood, and I think we need to be sensitive to that. And obviously, we've talked at length the bidding climate, that costs are inflationary costs have really risen this construction season. So I think we've heard from the neighborhood that they're not really willing to move forward. And I think it may be in everyone's best interest to just end this particular SAD. After we have the hearing, we have to hear from them. And then if we give them a little more time to collect signatures, I'm sure that they could certainly do that as well. So thoughts?
Commissioner Green?
So just kind of curious, if a homeowner is delinquent in taxes, does that nullify their right to express an opinion or vote? What
That's
does
my
that do?
understanding.
Sir?
Well, they could express an opinion,
Yeah, but they
but their
can't.
petition signature wouldn't be valid.
Correct.
Wait, okay, so the statute says they must be up to date on their taxes?
That's my understanding.
Yes,
Really?
That's what Mr.
Mr.
Steve
Steve
Mann,
Mann has
our attorney
informed us.
for this matter, has informed us of.
yes.
Obviously, the residents, the desire is there to stop, but right now they are just short of that threshold.
Now, do we have an obligation to notify that homeowner that their petition or their right to vote,
Their signature is not valid.
their
That's the point.
signature is not valid because of the fact that they are not up to date on taxes? Do we have
Yeah,
an obligation to notify them and tell them that?
I don't know if we have an obligation, but that was our intent, is we've got that news that we received today from the township, and they were going to inform the person that dropped off the petition that clearly they stopped when they thought they got the threshold. And now things have changed, knowing that that one parcel was delinquent, that give her another date certain to circulate more signatures.
Yeah.
And we have to have the public hearing in order to set that date, correct?
I think we schedule the public hearing for the 6th and allow for that extra time for the signature.
I don't think it hurts this organization to go ahead with a public hearing on the petition for reconsideration.
Right.
If we give them extra time to get signatures and we can set that date, a deadline prior to September 6th, which is when we're proposing that we would hold this public hearing, then either they're going to or they're going to not have a valid petition at that point. This board can have a public hearing, we can hear, and then the board can accept or reject this petition for reconsideration based on whether or not there's enough signatures in place. And then I think that will afford this board the opportunity to determine whether we want to move, we move forward per the statute or, and set the role and move forward with the project. Or we say, no, there's sufficient signatures per the statute. We're simply following the statute and to stop the project. But I think that, as Matt indicated, there's clearly a change of heart, at least on a certain percentage here. So I think that we would all feel most comfortable if we pretty much knew where this neighborhood was at with wanting to move forward. So giving them a little bit more time, we can go ahead and schedule the public hearing. If ultimately they still don't have the signatures in order to stop the project, then I think this board is obligated to continue to move forward. We will continue to run all of this by Steve Mann, our bond attorney, as we are moving forward as well, so that certainly the decisions that we would be recommending for this board are based on the statute.
Yeah,
And I'm assuming that during that time, that delinquent homeowner has an opportunity to
Pay their taxes.
pay their taxes and get caught up and make their petition valid.
We believe that to be true, but again, we will verify that with Steve Mann.
I see.
And
Okay.
in the meantime, if we give the people more time, then they could probably also get a few more homeowners to sign their petition.
Right.
So it may not be pertinent necessarily for that one homeowner
Right.
who is not current in their taxes. Forgive me, please.
But the bottom line is that whatever we're doing, we're following the statute. Yea or
Absolutely,
nay.
absolutely.
Commissioner McCollum. Thank you. I was wondering, Cheryl, you said that we should change the hearing this afternoon to a petition for reconsideration.
Correct.
So the people that have been notified of the hearing, how are they gonna know?
This isn't the public hearing itself.
Oh.
This is just the board taking action to set the date. for the
Oh,
public-
okay, thank you.
Yeah, no,
Oh,
we
it's
would,
like,
yeah,
wait a minute, how are they
that,
gonna know that?
yeah,
I know
no.
technology is good, but.
Yeah, no, this is simply the board taking
Okay.
action to set the date.
Okay,
Staff is recommending that the date would be September 6th, so we hold it at the beginning of the
Okay.
board meeting on
To give
September
them-
6th.
okay,
Yes, but it would be a public hearing on the petition for reconsideration, not a public hearing on setting the assessment rule, which is what was originally presented to you for this afternoon. So staff suggesting that what is now before you is the motion that be presented and acted upon as opposed to what was in your board packet.
Commissioner Doug Fuller.
How does staff, since we have most of the directors here, how does staff feel about having the public hearing at some date later than September the 6th, which corresponds to our next board meeting? What about the second board meeting in September, and allow the people in this neighborhood to perhaps come to an agreement among themselves? So that when they come back in with whatever the percentages are, they won't feel pressured that it has to be on the 6th. What is that? I realize in my own mind, this project is dead. Okay, there's certainly enough opposition there to convince me that it is too far gone to be committed to in this construction season. And I realize that, if we're not making decisions until 3/4 of the way through September, it's going to be real tough to try and get this thing built. However, I'd really like to make sure that everybody in this neighborhood has a chance to contemplate what's going on here, because I'm not sure, because we're giving them enough time. That's just my concern.
I think, obviously this is a new idea to think about, but certainly the idea that our construction season window is closing would be concerning. If we delay the hearing to the second meeting, I think you're essentially doing that, is that this project will unlikely be built this year, even if they come up short. Our contractor only has to keep their bid. Essentially, we've asked them to kind of extend their bid prices an exceptional amount of time because we've had to go through this process.
Right.
There's no guarantee that they will hold those bid prices.
Absolutely. And if we extend this long enough, I realize that that's going to be the net effect, which may or may not, and I certainly, this is my own thought on the process. If we extend it to our second meeting in September, yes, we're pretty much guaranteeing that it won't get built this year. And certainly Cadillac has shown itself so far to be convinced to hold their prices. However inflated we might think those prices might be. I am still not convinced that right now we've got 50% of the people down there saying no, and 50% maybe not saying yes. They said yes earlier. Okay.
Correct. There were sufficient
Exactly,
signatures
to move forward.
to have a valid petition to start the process.
I
So
agree.
initially, there definitely was enough support for the project. And there's been a lot of history that you are all well aware of as
Right.
we've been going through this. Where we're at today, we don't know. We just know what we've received, which was a petition with 53% of frontage signatures. And then obviously we had to go through the verification process. So one of those signatures did not
Yeah.
qualify today. We do have 3 weeks, and this is one of those odd times where we actually have 3 weeks between this
Meetings.
meeting and the September 6th meeting. So there is a little bit more time. Matt and I, since this is all evolving as we are speaking, had said we could potentially give them until September 1st. So that's giving them over 2 weeks to, I mean, collectively meet or to interact amongst themselves. Again, ultimately, we're a mechanism for this neighborhood to carry out a project that more than 50% want as a project moving forward. I don't think that we have a strong feeling one way or the other. We're following the statute as we're going through, and at some level, the will of the people who live in this neighborhood. So
I'm not comfortable right today that, at 53% would be enough to cancel the project. Am I correct?
you just need to have in excess of 50%.
Exactly. So
It's the petition is valid after 50%. The board still has the right under the statute to move the project ahead if they so choose. They also have the right to kill the project if they so choose. It's in the board's hands, but again, the beauty of this statute, it allows for lots of public interaction, lots of will of the people. So that, and I think we need, as a board, I would advise you to take that under consideration. If we hear from that group that there's a strong movement towards reconsidering, then my advice would be to recommend closing this one out.
Commissioner Yamas and Commissioner Green.
So I have a couple of questions. Number one, they saw that the bid came in 10% over, right? So then they had the opportunity again to voice their opinion once the 10% mark, then it gave them an option to resubmit a petition, whether they agreed with that or not.
It was a second public hearing of objection that was required by law because the bids came in as high as they did, and that was held in July. There was a public hearing that was a hybrid meeting, so people could come in person, they could participate virtually. That information was out there. And then basically at the conclusion of that is when the time frame starts to run. And I know I'm not exactly accurate, but basically that's when the petition for reconsideration, there was discussion about that at the public hearing of that would be the next step. If the neighborhood was no longer interested in moving forward, to start that petition for reconsideration, and it needed to be submitted by, and the deadline was yesterday, and they did submit in a timely manner yesterday.
Okay, so the second question and kind of follow up, I remember all of the upheaval and people felt they didn't have enough time from the first notification to be able to look for signatures. I mean, that would have taken a lot of mobilization, which they probably are not familiar with, but I guess my question is, we won't know until you, right? I want to know, when will the people in the district get notification that they don't have enough and that they'll be given enough time, when that notification will go out? So as Doug is talking, I know that Labor Day weekend is in there, and that's a holiday week or weekend, which kind of complicates things. So it does seem like 3 weeks. So unless a notice is going out today, electronically, snail mail, whatever, I don't quite trust the mail
Mhm.
anymore. Does that indeed give them 3 weeks, or really we can kind of knock off 1 week, because historically Labor Day weekend or Labor Day week is a holiday that a lot of people take advantage of.
Right.
So I guess my question is, when will you notify them that their petition is really doesn't have enough signatures, and they will give them extra time?
We can certainly share with the petitioner, the person who's been circulating this and who submitted the petition for reconsideration to us. We can certainly let that person know the status of the petition for reconsideration. And if we are extending the deadline and allowing additional time for signatures, that we can certainly share with the petitioner.
Okay, so it wouldn't be out to everyone in the district. That
What
you
would
would
go
let-
out to everyone in the district is, if the board takes action to set a public hearing, then we would be very clear. It's very prescribed as to how we go about doing that as far as a public hearing goes.
Okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Green.
Given the suggestion of Mr. Fuller, Commissioner Fuller, is there any harm, more than what you've just described, in setting that public hearing for the second meeting in September as opposed to the first?
No, I don't think so. We can certainly change the motion if that's the will of the board. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Please.
I think it's crucial for this board to both listen to the public and to be seen to be listening to the public. Given the flow of events of this particular SAD, it is not clear to me today that the will of that subdivision is that this project go forward. That's not clear to me. Every other SAD that I've voted on as a commissioner, there has been a clear will, one way or the other. Okay, we canceled one up in Northfield Township
Mhm.
because it became very clear that the people in that subdivision had changed their mind.
Mhm.
Fine, you know, it's, so I think that giving these people more time rather than less behooves this board. If that changes when the project, in point of fact, does go forward, then the people are going to have to understand that it's going to have to be rebid. Because I don't think anyway, that the contractor is going to sign a piece of paper saying, I'm going to hold my prices until next July.
Yeah, we have not awarded the contract.
Exactly.
It's been in a status of waiting on setting the roll, then award. So I don't know if Cadillac would be willing to extend their prices that long. That's a question. But I think
Exactly.
we let the petition for reconsideration and the hearing play out, and then we cross that bridge when we get there. We may not get there.
Do I hear consensus to move the hearing for reconsideration to our second meeting in September? Is that what I'm hearing from people? So it would be the 20th instead of the 6th?
I support that.
I would support it.
I mean, this is a working session,
Yeah,
so
this
I'm
is-
not asking for a vote. I'm just trying
Right.
to get a sense of what you want to see on this afternoon's agenda.
Sounds good to me, September 20th.
Gloria?
Well, I'm going back and forth because I want to honor what the staff thinks, but I also agree that it's not truly 3 weeks. It's like a 2-week time.
Right, so if we moved it to the 20th,
It would be more, yeah. It
Yeah,
would-
one of-
it would give
And I
the
think Gloria
citizens-
raised a very good point there, because
there's
many people do take
Well, there's
advantage
lots
of
of
the
things that happen.
Labor Day.
Yeah.
So-
back to school, right? So, okay. So do I
Yes. for me,
feel
yeah.
direction from my fellow board members? We will change the action item that's on the agenda now from a hearing date for the special assessment role to one as a hearing for reconsideration, moving it from the 6th to the 20th of September. Did I get all that right?
And
I think you did.
And in turn, we will certainly inform the petitioner after the board takes
After the
action this
board-
Right.
afternoon.
Right.
We will get letters out and clearly communicate all that, and we will give them a new deadline for signatures as well.
And then in the meantime, I've got questions for Steve Mann that can get sorted out. We
Go ahead.
don't
Are
need
you okay
to
with that?
work through
Yes, I am.
today. Yeah, yeah. So,
So just so you know, this is an action item,
Right.
so we're going to
Yeah,
repeat a good chunk of this
Mhm.
afternoon,
yes.
being Matt, the person who will be repeating this, so that anybody that may be joining us this afternoon, expecting us to schedule a public hearing for the role, is understanding why this all of a sudden is a very different motion. And we think that's important that
Yes.
become a part of the record.
Absolutely.
so will we have a new motion in
Yes.
front of us this afternoon then?
We will do
Okay,
that.
so the one that was on our desk when we came in was going to be a substitute for the special assessment role public hearing. We're now talking about a hearing for reconsideration. Plus the date of that
Change.
hearing is going to be modified.
Yes.
We all
Yep.
know what we're coming into this afternoon.
Yes, yes.
How about you, Matt? You know what we're up
I
against
think
here?
so.
Okay.
Thank you for your time and
Oh,
discussion
thanks
on
for
that.
your patience in explaining this
Absolutely. Thank you.
over and over and over. Commissioner
Yeah.
Yamas.
So on the miscellaneous items is, I just had one question about the painting, and the deadline for that is coming up on the 25th, the painting of our,
Snowplows?
snow
Oh.
plows for schools. Can you remind me again how we notify communities beside it being on our website? Do we send an invitation to each school district or to each school, or?
So for the Paint a Plow program, what we did this year is that we have advertised on our social media. It's also on our website, and we have reached out to previous schools that have participated in the past.
Okay,
So, and now our application deadline is the 25th, and we've opened it up to schools or community agencies because we've had a couple of senior centers participate in the past as well.
Okay.
So we're getting those applications in now. And so if you know of somebody, and it's any school or agency within Washtenaw County, so it doesn't necessarily have to just be a public school, but they can submit an application, and then we'll review those based on what availability we have of equipment to drop off.
okay.
And then plows will be painted in early September, and then we'll pick them up by October.
Okay.
So do we reach out to schools that have not participated in the past?
So far, I was on vacation last week, so far before I went on vacation, we reached out to schools that have participated in the past and trying to make sure we're reaching out to people in different parts of the county. And we've had good representation over the past of all those, so we can certainly reach out to more. If you know of other schools that might be interested, I'm happy to reach out to them. But we also put some onus on them to reach out to us. So if you've got people that you'd like me to reach out to, I'm happy to do that. But it is out there available. We just posted again, today on social media about it too, so.
What about organizations like nonprofit, neighborhood, community?
I would certainly be open to it. Like I said, we've had senior centers do it before. The Saline Senior Center has done a plow the last 2 years, whereas the Saline schools didn't have one. So Saline's, the senior center did it. So if you've got somebody that's interested, I'd have them apply and we'd certainly, work with them on it. We don't have unlimited resources and unlimited plows. So, but we are certainly, I think, open to having, people participate if they're interested. So
We're not to the point where we have to have a lottery on who gets to paint.
I would love for us to get to that point, but we are not at that point yet.
Right, right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
For that clarification.
And the deadline again is August 25th, right? Okay.
One other thing under
What other-
miscellaneous,
yes?
and that would be that, according to our current schedule, we have a board meeting scheduled for the first Tuesday in December. That would be December 6th. That also historically has been, the date that CRA picks for their legal symposium and educational session. This year, the educational session is on road villages, which I think is something that would be very beneficial to this organization, board members and staff. In addition, I have been asked to speak as part of a panel on the villages, as has Emily Kaiser. So I just wanted to inquire whether the board had any interest in moving the date of that meeting. We are obviously 2.5 months away from December 6th, to give us plenty of time to advertise, notify, that we'd be moving the date. Certainly, if necessary, I can find someone to speak on my, Matt is equally comfortable with the topic of villages and can present just as well as I can on the topic. So this isn't a must, but I do think there's a lot of value to the subject and to people actually attending the educational session. And
Including our board.
correct, exactly,
Mhm.
board and staff, correct.
So what would your suggestion be for the alternative date if we were not to meet on the 6th?
If we were not to meet on the 6th, we could meet on Wednesday, December 7th,
Oh, just a day's.
or we
change.
could meet on Monday, December
12.
5th.
Oh, the day before.
For the day after. I would not suggest a wild swing in
Mhm.
dates,
Mhm.
unless that does not work for schedules.
Either of that works for me.
Okay.
What about the 7th? The 7th makes sense to me, but.
Wednesday,
That works for me
Push it
too.
out one day.
Yeah, one
Monday, keeping it at 1
Start
o'clock in the
Monday.
afternoon, so the least amount of
Sure.
disruption to people who
Mhm.
have a normal expectation for our meeting schedule.
Right.
I'm
Okay,
hearing heads.
and if I'm seeing, yeah, if I'm
Heads
seeing
nod,
heads,
not
nod,
hearing
we can
On
certainly
my
have.
calendar.
I'm good. I put it on my calendar.
I will ask the board to take formal action on
Yes.
that on the 6th. We'll bring a revised board schedule before you, but I just wanted you to know why we would be proposing that.
Commissioners,
Could add it to the agenda this afternoon.
Commissioners, just a point on that, whoever is the commissioner on chat that day, it will be either a long afternoon or we may want to think about chat that day because Wednesdays from noon to 1 are our virtual chats. So
It's a long day.
that's a,
Quit your snivel.
just to put it out there.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll buy you a sandwich. I might even
I was
be.
gonna
the
say, it
person.
might be you.
Yeah.
Oh, I can tell you who it is.
Well, I appreciate that we could write something up for this afternoon. I don't know that it's emergency, so we certainly could do it on the 6th as well.
Gloria, you're on for December 7th.
So that'll be fine. Yeah, I'm good with it.
We'll cater your lunch from Betsy's. How about that?
It's my birthday on the 6th, so it'll be a belated birthday.
Oh.
Oh, so now you want a cake.
Bacon.
Well, let's add champagne while we're at it. Is that right? Okay. So I'm hearing we could do it today, but it's not urgent that we do it
Exactly.
today.
So do it
So
on the 6th.
on the 6th of September, we'll take that up. Okay,
Would
what
you like
else
to have a
on-
motion to adjourn?
I want to make sure the miscellaneouses have been covered, Commissioner
Mm-hmm.
Fuller.
Yes, that ends the miscellaneous. at this
Okay.
point.
Okay. Please, you may, go for it.
Oh, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Emily, if you would call the roll, please.
Commissioner Rod Green,
Yes.
Commissioner Gloria Yamas,
Yes.
Commissioner Joanne McCollum,
Yes.
Commissioner Douglas Fuller,
Yes.
and Commissioner Barb Fuller.
Yes, We are adjourned. See everyone at 1 o'clock. Thank you.